Hello, everyone. I'm joined today with Mark Mann. Mark is the co-founder of 8chan Moe, and he also runs the V board. He's the board owner. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, for sure. So I would like to introduce myself as well, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
My name is Mark Mann. I worked as a community manager for about 7 to 8 years, maybe 9 years, I guess more like for about for an NT technology and niche gamer. I started up HHands V after I learned about a board called Burgers and Fries when browsing 4chan's V at the time. They were discussing Zoe Quinn stuff, and I saw that I could make my own board on HN, and I saw an opportunity to make an actual competitor since annons have a tendency to go move on to the next thing very quickly, and Gamergate was still fresh in everyone's minds. And people were still pissed off with 4chan even before that, but I figured this would be a good opportunity at the time to sort of start a real competitor. Because the only thing back then closest to it was 7chan and 420chan that didn't really have the same push that 4chan had. So after what's it called, that I worked with I started created a team of people. I worked with I was part one of a team who we would help manage and promote the HN until Frederick sold it to Jim Watkins in the Christmas around Christmas of 2014. Since Frederick was having issues paying off the site and everything, and Jim saw his site in a news article from Al Jazeera, and he offered to bring Fred, a good amount of money, bring him over to the Philippines, so on and a wife, and so on and so forth. But that's Frederick's story, mine. I, so after about a year or two, I was volunteering for the V stuff for about a year or two, and I approached a few people, including Ron, his Jim's son, and I was asking him if he knew anyone with a potential contact I could work for and make money with, because at the time I was a college dropout, and I was looking for like a real job I could put my skills towards. Since I was doing most of my time working on the V stuff, and my mother at the time, bless her soul, was threatening to cut me off from her support and throw me into the street because I assumed the government housing was getting fed up with me because I wasn't doing the whole Jewish thing and I wasn't giving them money. At the time, I asked a few people if they had any open positions in the company, and Ron brought me onto the company under the condition that I worked under a contract, which was fine, fair enough. But I worked that with him then for 6 years, and including the time I volunteered with him since he took away the V board and everything after I left the company. So I decided. So the reason why I left is I decided to post criticism of Akon after the whole shit show that was Christchurch shooting and the QAnon stuff, because I was overwhelmed with the political shit, the constant slander, the removal of HN's original mission objectives, and the general mistreatment after 6 years of long nonstop work. Since I was getting paid 2,000 straight every month, but there was no raises, there was no benefits. I was basically working for a flat 2,000 dead end. And I would do this. I was working like 12, 15-hour work days with a team of 10. Thankfully, it wasn't just me. I would have fucking lost it. But the thing is, I had to be up till 4 a.m. every day, and I'd get phone calls if something went wrong in the event of an emergency. Obviously, I had issues with the censorship of anime content and the extreme focus on the QAnon crowd, which led to me moving away from Acon to HN.moe or some other communities, starting my own bunker or whatever. I had a feeling I was going to be fired after my open letters, since it was just a gut feeling, and I'm pretty sure I got a good read on Jim and Ron after Frederick's bullshit. So I actually contacted some other board owners, like Gahul of TV, in hopes of bringing back my previous bunker when the original 8chan went down, or was replaced with Acon, called VCH.moe. Sadly, the guy behind that project ghosted me after I worked with him. And this was basically when I was in a full depression mode. I was trying to save community from losing itself. But sadly, during that panic, instead of taking a break to get week to just get my bearings together and understand that I lost a lot in the process of getting fired, I tried to work with a bunch of bunkers, what I think it was called Pop something, and the major one, which was called Fatchan, where I made a board in Fatchan, which was a very similar site to 8chan, your user creation and all that stuff, but with a different software. And I decided to leave for a week after getting a massive amount of shit. And I was just like, I just had enough at the time, and I just needed to take a break and all that. So when I came back, the administrator refused to give me back the board back to me, and I feel like he opted to just take things over from me, which I felt really disappointed about. But there's literally nothing I could do. That was until Acid actually reached out to me and told me about a project he was working on, and I gave him some money, and that's how we started HN.moe, which is which I told him about Akon and Ron's big secret sauce for keeping us online. It was basically a Tor portal now known as Red Channel, which basically what is basically a fork of a project called Tor to Web, which allowed you to view Tor websites on the ClearNet. So Red Channel is basically what Project Odin was, which I'm not sure if you remember Project Odin, but basically Ron's big hype project they was working on for over a year was this thing called Project Odin that was supposed to be censorship proof and all this big bold claims. Took Ron a year, took Acid less than a month, which I found to be that was that really opened my eyes to see how much of a shit, how much no, how little Ron and Jim gave about the site, and basically vindicated my viewpoint of I fucked up for the past 6 years. Don't get me wrong, I love the V stuff. I love the V community, but I really fucked up by trusting them, and so did Frederick. And Frederick went full communist, socialist, whatever, and that's his business. He lost a lot more than I did, but I still lost a lot, and fucking, like Frederick and me just went completely different paths. Frederick completely revamped his whole belief style. I personally just doubled down on what I believe in because I don't think I did anything wrong. So that was a very interesting thing. But basically, continuing onwards, after HN.moe launched, which was during the Fatchan hype, we weren't sure if it was going to take off since everyone was on Fatchan, Poll, Feed, TV, what have you, and it was the go-to for the community. After this, they decided to leave 8kun since that's where everyone was directed to back on 8kun, back when we had control over the board. So when I was telling people, hey, everyone go to 8kun, and then they word filtered, HN.moe and Fatchan and all the other boards. And unfortunately, Fatchan got shut down because the admin didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't paranoid enough, like Acid is. Like I love Acid, and his paranoia is basically a gift. So I think still go. I know I gave you like the whole thing, but I'm gonna add on to this a little more. I think it's unfortunate that Fat Chat got shut down, but hope I know they just relaunched. Well, they relaunched the few other sites in the web ring and whatever. It's just like whatever they want to do. That's none of my business. So good for them. But going back to me, yeah, so after Fatchan got shut down, we were trying to redirect people to HN.moe. Unfortunately, we didn't get all of them, but I'm happy for the ones. I'm very thankful to the people who decide to come to V and give us a chance, even though we were just taking up the old name after Jim short a shadow over it. And yeah, after that, after we got everything set up, I decided to leave officially as I'm not doing it, meaning I'm not going to do any administrative stuff with 8MOA. I'll give advice, I'll help with the V board, whatever. But me and Acid and the new admins decided that I shouldn't be a part of the administrative team since we wanted to bring in people who weren't really fond of the old staff, who weren't really fond of the old HN.co.ach.net team because they didn't want anything to do with Jim and Ron, which I completely, totally respect because Jim and Ron were kind of like assholes. So you lied about everything. They fucking lied about the anime. They banned anime content. They abandoned the MO. It was a whole big clusterfuck. And really, it's like they didn't bother trying to fix up Akon V. They just left it to die, which is really unfortunate seeing the sorry state it's in. But honestly, it's fucking deserved because really they just really abused their trust, unfortunately, because they wanted to cater to the QAnon crowd, and I wanted to have the site cater to everyone, just be one big giant platform to cater to whoever wants to be on a channel. It wasn't meant to be this sort of hyper Nazi focused, communist focused website. It was supposed to be a website for everyone who wanted to get bored. It was basically like a mix of 4chan and Reddit's concepts, but without the negatives, with the up and down votes, and without the over centralization. But yeah, what's it called? Now I think we got a pretty good site going. I hope it grows soon, and I hope more people get the word out about it. I mean, there's only so much you do because the branding's getting toxic, and it's kind of hard for to promote a site with the giant clusterfuck. So it's really impossible to to market .moe. But honestly, I'm happy with what we have in terms of like the V stuff. I hope the site grows outside of that niche. Like we got Hispachan, I'm very thankful they came on board because even though I'm not an admin or anything like that, I am rooting for Acid and his team, to sort of be successful. Where unfortunately Jim, Ron, Josh, and Frederick failed, and I really do want to see HN be successful. So hopefully more communities are willing to come to us instead of trying to like go back to 4chan or whatever.
All right.
After the
Okay,
8chan
Mark, we've
stuff,
gone we've gone about 10 minutes now. We've gone 12 minutes almost.
there's a lot to discuss. I'm sorry, but there's a lot to
There is a
discuss.
lot to discuss, but I do I'll be upfront. I'm going to say this, I'm not a channer. Like I posted on GGHQ a little bit. Um and occasionally back when GG Revolt started, I posted there for like a couple weeks. And maybe
Oh.
V every once in a blue moon, but like I was very much not a channer. So I'm just give us a minute here and we'll go through what some of this Chan stuff is, okay?
Yeah, maybe I'm going too fast for you. I apologize for that.
Well,
But
I'm a slow
after
thinker, or so people say. So
you're done, almost done. I mean,
okay,
after the 8chan
well,
stuff, I basically.
okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What's up?
No, go ahead and finish your introduction real quick.
All right, sure. After the 8chan stuff, I worked with a website called Niche Gamer. I managed their YouTube content with a friend of mine who actually worked on the content, and I was focused on vetting talent and making sure they were content appropriate and all that other stuff. But after 6 months to a year of the Niche Gamer stuff, I decided to split with my partner because at the time they promised payment and they never paid him, and I got really upset over that. So I just left the company after that because they fucked my friend over. But that's old news, and now I'm currently looking for work. But and it's been difficult due to the clusterfuck that is the job hunt, the job market. But I'm gonna keep pushing, and hopefully I'll land something soon. And I've been busy, I've been happy, I've been working on 8Mo, and I've been very happy.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're happy. So, just to sort
Yeah,
of get like a brief overview of the timeline, I want to make sure I understand this right. So, 4chan was obviously a major website, still is, and a lot of people were unhappy with how 4chan was run. There was a lot of censorship, things like that. So, people went to this new website, 8chan,
yes,
ran by a guy named Frederick Brennan. He also goes by Hot
correct,
Wheels. Now, Frederick
correct,
and you worked together to help keep this site afloat and build the site out, but it was later bought out by a company, by these two individuals, Jim and Ron. Now,
correct. But it
from
wasn't just Fred and me; it was some other people that I'm not going to name. One in particular was very helpful during the past 6 years, but now I don't know, it's a complicated situation. But he basically decided to block me after I left the company. But it was like four to five different people, a part of the general marketing and team, who was spreading the word of HN and sort of making sure everything was shaping up to be what it is or what it was or what it became to be.
Okay. So then 8chan, it goes under, it gets shut down, something happens. Why did 8chan, the original 8chan, get shut down or go away?
Well, the original H, believe it or not, that was because of Jim Watkins. So Jim Watkins was trying to make money from HN by using the journalist pipeline, which is basically on two channel. They have this thing where Jim makes a lot of money from journalists who want to promote their stories, and they would pay him to post their stories in two channel. He wanted to do something similar for HN, where at the time I would take stories from journalists and post them on News Plus or whatever the board was. And what he wanted to do after a while, after that got popular, he wanted to start charging outlets to post news on ACUT.
Okay. So 8chan rebranded as 8kun, and then
Correct.
people were unhappy. Some people were unhappy with the moderatorship, the adminship there. They felt like they
Well,
weren't running the company very well, and they broke off and they formed your new site, 8chan Moe.
that is correct. And if I may add a little more information, ACUN apparently was actually wasn't a rebrand. It was supposed to be a whole separate project. Apparently, I didn't find this out until after I left the company. But basically, ACUN is a completely different project, a completely different mission objectives. And I was lied to about Ron about that because he wanted to keep me on, I guess, and I didn't see the bullshit until Jim confronted me about it, and we had an argument, and I realized that this wasn't something I wanted to be a part of.
Okay. Now I know there's a lot of stuff involving 8chan and various phases it's undergone over the years. This book is mostly focused on GamerGate though. This is a GamerGate book, so I'm probably not going to dive super deep into the Chan stuff, okay, except where it's
Well,
necessary.
I mean, the chance stuff and Gamergate are integral, so I would argue, despite the interview being HN focused, there was a lot of Gamergate stuff being on HN, and I'd be happy to elaborate if needed.
Yes. So I do want to talk about obviously 8chan was a very controversial website. Um, had a lot of normal boards, but there were allegations that the website didn't do enough to stop child pornography and possibly even allowed that to take place, be posted.
That was false, from what I understand. The issue with the CSAM issue is that there's just like there's the Tor stuff where fucking what was it? Basically, people were trying to work around the VPN system where we basically the original HN banned Tor embeds, right? But they allowed VPNs, which is should be allowed. But unfortunately, bad actors were trying to take advantage, and they would screenshot pictures of the CSAM being posted in order to take HN down. Now, the global administration at the time did everything they could to remove that content, and they did remove that content on the big boards. It was very hard to spot child pornography, but unfortunately, there was a Daily Dot article that claimed there was actual child pornography on the site, but honestly, there really wasn't. And like to the level of any social media platform that had that problem, because we're an image board, we also have that problem. Same thing as Twitter and Reddit, and they all have that CSAM problem. But the difference between them and us is that we allow sort of anything as long as it's legal, whereas Reddit and Facebook toe the line. So because we're their political opponents, they lie about certain things. And like for example, I think his name was Dan Olson he actually got caught posting the child pornography in order to make that article. So I think the child pornography issue is handled as best as it could have been. When we see it, we remove it. We had blockers and shit. And even now with 8Mo, we do our best, our God willing best to take that shit down and report it as much as we can, to the proper authorities. I'm not saying, you're part of the FBI or CIA or whatever, but we do what we legally need to do to protect kids, like not anime, but actual fucking kids from being exploited.
Now you say not anime, and this is where I've read through 8chan's rules. When you go there for the first time, it says that child pornography is basically not allowed, except you do allow cartoon drawings lolicon, it's
Yeah,
called,
because
of
they're not fucking children. They're cartoon drawings. They're line, pen, and paper. They're basically pen and paper.
what?
Like, could you fuck a pen and a paper?
Like I don't. I'm like a pretty hardcore free speech person. I don't think that that sort of thing should be illegal because no one is harmed directly by it. But if I were running a website, I wouldn't want that stuff on there.
Well, I mean, to be honest, well, you have to keep in mind, HN is a very free speech oriented website. We don't take it. The whole MO of HN was we don't take action unless we necessarily need to. Like, we'll allow your rights to, that sort of smut that you can't get anywhere else to be on our website because everyone's discriminating against you or whatever. We don't. I personally don't care for all these stuff, but I think it's important that we allow it because HN itself is about pushing the boundaries on a global level. Like on V, I personally allow it because I don't really care for it because I think it's fine. But for example, if someone would post a zoophilia or something like very gore-ish that's actually covered by the law, I would ban that shit and delete the post. But on a site-wide level, we try to have a very libertarian approach to these sort of things because the whole purpose of ATN was to push the limits of free speech and like as long as no one's being violent, as long as no one's calling to bomb the Pentagon or whatever the fuck, then it's like why is this any of our business? This go about your business is your own, my business is my own. If I could run the board any way I like to, and so could any other board owner. If you don't like the way we run things, then you can make your own board. That's the way it should be.
Right. And
You
go ahead.
compete in the market space.
To for those who don't know, 8chan's a bit different from 4chan in a very specific way. And that is that it's like Reddit for the chance. Anybody can make their own board, but if you look at some of the boards that are listed, right, they are lally boards, like you say. Um, don't you think that that's going to make it difficult for you to grow your website and to like have people have negative associations with it? Because even if they aren't posting child porn, and maybe they did, I don't know. I'm not making that allegation. Um, but if people were posting that on there and it was allowed to posting lally and it's allowed to stay up there, you're attracting people that are probably pedophiles, right, to the site.
Well, if it was actual exploitive of children, then we would ban it. But it's like here's the thing: the interesting thing about all these shit is that it's just technically at the end of the day, a pen of a paper and a piece of paper and a pen. So I don't believe it should be put on the same level as actual child pornography because at the end of the day, no actual child is being harmed. I mean, the whole reason we banned child pornography from the internet in the first place is because actual real life children are being harmed. Like they're being tortured, they're being like sold, slavery, all sorts of this disgusting, degenerate shit. Now, personally, I don't care if something's degenerate, but if like if someone's actively selling real life people and real life dogs with slavery and sex and all this other disgusting stuff, then I don't think that should be allowed. I think there should be a clear distinction between real life shit and the fiction we see on TV or the internet, whatever you want to call it, real life and fiction.
Now, Google decided to unlist the original 8chan supposedly over these child pornography concerns. Why do you think that they saw it was legitimate?
Because Google saw, personally, in my opinion, I think Google just read the Daily Dot article, and I think at the time Frederick wasn't doing enough to combat the child pornography issue back in 2015. I know that in 2015-16 there were some issues where Frederick was a bit slow with the with CCM stuff and would allow certain things that I would personally ban, like the bikini stuff. We do not allow that on .moe, but unfortunately, it was illegal. It was legal at the time, and Frederick allowed it. And unfortunately, the board owner of the random board in 2015 was an actual pedophile. So thankfully, he's gone, and thankfully, we banned that shit now. We have a no tolerance issue with on a no of no tolerance of pedophiles. We want them to burn on the stake for all we know. Do we want to burn? But
All right.
yeah, basically, to answer your question, it was because Frederick was a little slow in the draw.
And you say C-spam, right? That's the child pornography.
T-Sam, yeah, that's this child pornography thing. Yeah, I mean, with Frederick is that I'm not. Well, I guess I'm dissing him in this point, but he was a bit because he didn't have so many globals at the time. He was a bit slow when it came to the CP issue. Like I think there was some debates among the globals when it came to actual children being modeled. Personally, that shit was never allowed on V, and will never be allowed on V. The anime shit I don't care about, but the actual children never going to be fucking allowed. But back in 15, 16, on some other minor boards, Frederick really didn't give that much of a shit about GamerGate and the whole whatever was legal, illegal. If you want, to, you can go more into that,
Well,
but I don't think that.
there are other questions I'd like to ask.
Okay, go.
So
All
you
right.
doubled down on what you believe in. What do you believe in?
What do I believe in? I believe that I personally find some shit degenerate even if it's legal. But like I said before, I'm no longer part of the admin team. But if I was, I would personally ban the zoo shit, the zoophilia shit, and I would ban everything related to child. Like not, I don't consider lolly part of the child porn shit because lolly lolly art is just art. At the end of the day, it's perfectly legal despite what Devil Advocate says. It's just lines and drawings, nothing. As long as they don't base it on actual children, then who gives a shit? I mean, I personally don't care for it. Once again, I can't believe I have to reiterate for this, but basically, my opinion is that. Let me take a sip of water. There's a lot to talk about. My opinion is that if Japan could do it, then should we. And if no children are actually being harmed, then fuck it. If their children being abused, being molested, being exploited, then that's one thing. That at least the people behind that should be gassed and burned on the stake like the Jews in the Holocaust because they're fucking disgusting.
Well, to be clear, you don't think the Jews in the Holocaust should have been burned at the stake, or like?
Fuck no, I'm Jewish myself.
Okay,
I
all
mean,
right.
if my people had to burn, then so should these pedophiles
Well, I wanted to ask
because
because you mentioned you were Jewish, and that's interesting because obviously some of the memes that posted on some of the boards, like poll, um, don't take too kindly to Jews.
I know that's the interesting thing, isn't it? I put my personal feelings aside from the poll stuff. I think it's rather interesting actually because a lot of people like to play the victim, but I don't. I think it's too exploitive because I at the end of the day, I know most of the poll stuff are just jokes and having fun and that sort of thing. The sort of people who take it seriously, I personally don't allow them on my board because I believe them to be federal agents and causing mischief. But technically, it's legal. They can say whatever they want as long as it's not violent, and they should be allowed to see whatever they want as long as it's not violent or calling to bomb the Pentagon or whatever the fuck. I mean, excuse my language, but it's just like they have freedom of speech. I don't agree with it, but they should be allowed to see whatever they want.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't
I
have
don't.
to
I don't
agree.
agree
That's just
with.
my
No, I
personal
don't
opinion.
agree with the. I don't agree with the poll people, obviously. But
Neither do I. Neither do I. But
hang
I
on,
think.
Mark.
Oh, sorry. I
I
get a
I
little
think they should
passionate
have freedom of
sometimes.
speech. I think they should have freedom of speech. I think hosting a board where people can post free speech stuff, and including like far right views, I think that that's fine. Um, though I do want to push back on this idea that they're all just joking. I don't think that that's true. I think there might be some people there who are joking. There might be some people there who are, federal investigators looking into this stuff, and they probably should be looking into it. And there's probably a lot of people there too who are actual like far right people and who post like manifestos on there and sometimes do bad stuff.
100%. But the interesting thing about that is that a lot of these people mostly post on Discord and Twitter and all these other websites, yet HN is specifically targeted because we have a more libertarian slant on the other websites, which I find to be very interesting.
Yeah, I would agree that there is a double standard that 8chan is held to. I think that that's probably true. Though, why do you think that most of the people who post on, obviously 8chan doesn't even host a poll anymore? I don't think, does it? It's not on the main. It's
We
not on the.
kind of do. It's not as active as it used to
Okay.
be. There is a poll board because anyone can make their own board as long as like it's not asking for like child pornography or something insane like that. But like personally, I don't really care for poll. Like in terms of the whole Nazi edgy shit, I think they're bad people, so I don't bother talking to them. But at the same time, I think it's interesting to just get a perspective of someone I may not agree with, if that makes sense. Because don't get me wrong, I don't approve of this bullshit, but I think we should learn from people we disagree with and have multiple points of view, both from the left and the right, the communists and the Nazis. Because I think that the whole point of 8chan's mission objective was not to discriminate against anyone, and that means literally anyone, unless they're posting advocating for terrorism or rape or something insane like that. But basically, I think that's important to know what your mission objectives are for the kind of project you're making and sort of go from there. Because you have to keep in mind as well, HN is not for children. It's an 18 plus website, meaning this is a site made by adults for adults. And we expect to have a mature audience. And not everyone is a mature person, but we expect to have a mature audience and we expect everyone to behave within the rule set of each board, if you get what I'm saying. Like on V, we ban people who try to dox and harass and all this other nasty shit. But we also allow certain topics to be discussed. Like Gamergate, as long as they're kept in line, as long as they don't try to dox anyone or try to hack anyone or call for the burning of the Capitol or whatever the fuck, then we don't really care what they do. It's like none of our business.
Right. Now you did mention doxing. Now obviously the GamerGate boards they had very strict rules on
So
doxing,
did so did
but
V. So did V because
yeah, and
with
yes,
V we actually banned that as well. I mean, there
right.
were some
No, I don't
people who
disagree.
tried to slip through the cracks, who tried to slip through the cracks, who tried to make excuses for it, who would abuse virtual private networks and poor to post this information. And we were working around the clock to delete it as well when something big happened.
Sure. No, I'm
Because
not. I'm not accusing you of not. But 8chan hosts a large number of websites, a large number of boards and communities, and some of those
yes,
boards did allow doxing, like Baphomet.
yes.
And you,
And we have no and while I detest Baphomet, at the same time I had no control over what Baphomet did because Baphomet is basically what Kiwi Farms is now, where they had their own board owner. The administration didn't want to get involved in other boards as long as they weren't, on the original HN boards could even raid other boards. Thankfully, with 8 MOA, we don't allow board raiding anymore. But back on the original HN, that was unfortunately a thing, which I think should have been global rule number 2. But it's a process. We know what kind of community we want to make with V and GamerGate. With the GamerGate stuff, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to focus on the censorship, the discrimination, the ethics, the journalists and the industry people basically leading sort of this culture of fear of being blacklisted and whatnot. And I wanted to fight against that in the best way I can, which is being part of a group speaking against it and pushing back against it. And I think for the most part, Gamergate was a successful movement. I mean, obviously, there's only so much GamerGate could do, but where it stood out the most, it accomplished most of its goals. It obviously, couldn't stop the crazy amount of money from ESG and all that bullshit pouring into the industry. but it did give alternative voices to what was essentially a one-sided conversation back in 2014, 2012.
You mentioned earlier your bunker. What do you mean by that?
So back when 8chan was down, I helped with a friend of mine who was previously a volunteer on the original 8chan. I paid to fund a bunker called VCH.moe, which was basically for just VTV and a few other boards who wanted to come on. And believe it or not, during that adjustment period of Jim shutting down 8chan to make to make 8kun, Jim was lying to me and saying he was going to bring back 8chan, but it turns out behind my back he was actually talking with Ron, and he was actually killing off 8chan. So in between that period, I was paying for a bunker to sort of keep the community alive and healthy, so that when 8chan did come back, we didn't know it wasn't coming back at the time. That 8chan would have a healthy community to go back to. Because I have to give some context for this. I'm sorry. In 2015, there was this project headed by Kiwi Farms' admin called Josh, called Infinity Next. Now, Frederick wanted to give 8chan to Josh after Infinity Next was finished. But due to the failure of Infinity Next and how many losers we lost, Ron and Jim decided to take the mantle of admin to themselves, and Ron took over where Josh failed. And things were going all right for the first few years, but then Jim was upset that the audience wasn't recovering and he was getting greedy. So, in my assumption, allegedly he made the QAnon thing. So,
All right, now you
with the
did.
bunker,
Go ahead.
yeah, I don't know. I think he did allegedly. So I think either Jim or Ron made QAnon, and he was hyping up Trump or some other shit. He wouldn't say it outright to me, but he was hinting at it, and I don't have any proof, so I can't say for sure. But it was sort of hinted here and there privately to me. I don't have the logs anymore,
Okay.
unfortunately,
I do want to bring
so I
it
can't
back
say it's factual.
a little bit. You said that
But
you.
yeah, I'm working on it. So in the
No, hang on.
VCH to the bunker was basically a project I did for like 6, 8 months to basically protect 8chan's V and TV and people who wanted to come on.
Okay, now you say that you got involved because you cared about like the burgers and fries and Zoe Quinn stuff. What made that interesting
No,
to you?
I didn't get involved. I didn't get involved because I cared about Zoe Quinn. I got involved at the time because I was really upset over the. I think the market. It was a long ass time ago, but I was upset over the feminist, the whole feminist angle of censoring the market. It was more about censorship to me than it was about Zoe Quinn, because you have to keep in mind, we even back in 2011, 2012, there was a suspicion that all these people were working together, but that wasn't confirmed until a little bit after Gamergate, where Billy, who the ex-admin of One Angry Gamer, where we worked for Screen Rant or some other website, he leaked the entire blacklisting journalist, the gaming journalist, the not journalist but journal list, which was a list of individual journalists and PR people and video game industry people who are sort of colluding and working together, and created the whole Gamers Are Dead articles. 10 of them, and they all come out at the same time. And the
Well,
reason
to
I think
clarify
Gamergate was,
though, the specific planning of the game of the GamerGate articles was not revealed in the Game Journal Pro list.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying that Gamergate started out, in my opinion, it got popular because of the Gaming Journal Pro list. Obviously, you have the gaming is dead stuff, but that takes the back seat to the the reveal of the suspected corruption that was happening behind the scene for years.
Now,
It was corruption and collusion that draw me towards Gamergate, not so much the feminist stuff. While it did play a part because I was young, I was stupid, and I believed, oh, I need a bad or whatever. Even though she is bad at what she did, at the same time, I find it interesting that people can't that she was basically advocating for censorship of games or whatever, and
Well,
I
she,
think
she says
that
that the video games. She says that video games. She didn't advocate for censorship directly. She says that video games can cause real life harm, can harm women in the real
yeah, no,
world.
it's definitely implied. I mean, if like let's be honest here, if video games could cause real life sexism, then why wouldn't we ban it? Why wouldn't the government get involved and say, hey, this needs to be banned or whatever the fuck the government does? But
But
the
they
interesting
weren't they
thing,
weren't mostly arguing for the government to do things. They were arguing that game developers should have a social responsibility to not make games like this anymore.
exactly, basically, yeah. I mean, that's really they were definitely implying that because they were saying that it's toxic, it's harmful towards gamers. The industry needs to change, it needs to grow up, and all that sort of that non free market bullshit that these people try to spout the political autism of it, and basically try to police the market from making certain games and certain products.
To you, was GamerGate a backlash against feminism?
At first, maybe. In the long term, no. It wasn't a backlash against feminism. It was a backlash against corruption as a result of feminism. Because you have to keep in mind, a lot of the corrupt people were feminists. And I'm personally not against the idea of equality. I like the idea of equality. I like people doing what they want and making their own things. I'm a libertarian by heart. But at the same time, I think Gamergate was a revolt against this collusion and corruption against the games industry.
So just
I think.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I think feminism definitely played a part in bringing people in, but I don't think feminism was the be all end all of Gamergate. I think the corruption and collusion had more to do with it. I mean, yeah, it started with Zoe Quinn sexually abusing her boyfriend, and that sexual harassment was fucking disgusting. But wasn't that, and that may have led to the spark of Gamergate. But that in itself is something separate from Gamergate, the Burger and Fries controversy.
So I was talking with Hannah Zamora, a critic of the GamerGate movement, and she very much takes issue with the burgers and fries stuff and views it as being a harassment campaign against Zoe Quinn. What do you
Yeah,
think
but
about it?
I think it's interesting because it's a harassment campaign against Zoe Quinn, but Zoe Quinn was harassing her ex boyfriend and was abusing him. Yet, for some reason, because Zoe Quinn's a woman, she has a special privilege. Well, what's his name? Ijon, with the guy. What's his name again? Ejon.
Aaron
Zoe Quinn's
Joni, but I
ex-boyfriend,
I might be
Aaron Joni.
I might be
Yeah, because Aaron
hang on.
Joni got abused because. Oh, sorry.
I um
I think my
hang
point
on,
is that
no,
I
hang
think
on,
there was a
Mark.
big double
Shut up for a
standard.
second. Uh
Sorry.
I might close the interview down early. I don't
Really,
want
what
to.
happened?
Family emergency.
All right, we'll do a part two then.
No, no, no. We'll not. We can go for another couple hours, but I don't think it's going to be a 7 hour stream. Okay.
No, it's not. I wasn't planning on a 7 hour stream anyway,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I was planning to do it till
I'm
9.
sorry. I
So
didn't mean to
sorry,
cut you
everyone.
off. It's just I got some
No,
pretty
no, you're fine. You're
bad
fine.
news
We'll
just a
end
few
it
minutes ago. But no, it's fine. We'll go another hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we'll
for
um
sure. For sure. My condolences to whatever it is.
yeah, I'll tell you off air.
For sure.
Sorry, you were saying Aaron Joni was being harassed by Zoe Quinn.
Yeah, Aaron Joni was being abused by Zoe Quinn, and people were upset about that, kind of like anyone would be when someone with proof has an actual story against harassment. And I find the double standard to be very interesting in regards to Zoe Quinn and Aaron, whatever the fuck his last name is. And I think there's absolutely a double standard. Is it important is it anyone else's business? It depends on how you view sexual harassment cases and if the public should get involved. Personally, at the time, I was interested in it, but it wasn't really my business at the end of the day. I realize that now, in hindsight, that it wasn't shouldn't have been a big thing that it was. But I think what came after that, the GamerGate stuff, was more important than anyone really realizes, because this is really the first time people were experiencing sort of the heavy left wing media bias, where they were being slandered by Wikipedia, Google, Facebook, Twitter. Everyone was trying to shut them down, and they accomplished all the goals they could. It's just there were billion-dollar companies attacking them, and I find that to be very interesting.
Okay, I want to get to the list of questions. Give me 2 seconds. I gotta text my boss.
No worries, I understand. How many watchers we have on stream, by the way?
5 on YouTube, and there's nobody on Kick. Which, by the
That's
way, I stream
unfortunate.
on Kick too, free speech platform.
If I was thinking about doing the YouTube stuff, my kick stuff myself, but I don't think I have the charisma for it, unfortunately.
It takes a certain type of mentality, and but you can develop that and get better at public speaking. Like when I first
Yeah.
started with the GamerGate stuff streaming, I was very shy, and now I'm a very outspoken and confident person, I guess. Anyway, I do apologize that we might not be going so long. This was something that might have been coming for a while, but
Now you're fine. It's a family emergency. It can't be
yeah,
helped. I
yeah,
mean, I mean, it's like I try. It's like there's only so much you could do in the event of that situation. Like I lost a lot during the whole process, so I understand when like if a family member, a relative, whatever, when you need to adjust these things. I get it, man. I get
yeah.
it.
Okay. Well, hey, let's go ahead and get to the questions, okay? Tell me about your GamerGate experience, Mark.
So I actually got into it with the burgers and fries stuff. I was interested in the whole conversation. I think Zoe Quinn was taking advantage of Iran, Aaron, or whatever the fuck, however you pronounce his name. And I was young and stupid at the time. Still am stupid, but I'm not really that young. So I was interested in the overall topic. So I was actually very lucky when 4chan decided to ban Gamergate, because I saw an opportunity and I took it. So I basically got lucky from finding 8chan, making a V, and advertising it on Twitter and 4chan at the time, because I knew there was an audience that was sick of the censorship, that was sick of how things are being handled on 4chan, and they wanted something different to the status quo. And what I was offering at the time is I wanted a board, a different type of V, that would sort of balance the shit posting and the actual serious discussion. So in the sense I made promises to offer something different than what 4chan had, in addition to a superior feature set, and we were just the better website in general to post on, which is why I think 8chan sort of took off before before it got shut down by Jim Watkins.
All right. Can you define what GamerGate was?
It was a consumer revolt. It was a consumer revolt against collusion and corruption in the video games industry.
Okay. Do you consider yourself a gamer? What does that term mean to you?
Yeah, so I consider anyone who's interested in games to be a gamer. It's like I know the industry has been shifting towards the term player. There really, I think gamers is someone very interested, very and really pursues games as a hobby. Like a game developer makes games, gamers play games. Like serious hardcore gamers or even casual gamers are still gamers because they're interested in gaming as a hobby, and they play games for fun. And I think that's what a gamer is someone who plays games to have fun.
Is that a gendered term for you?
What term?
A gendered term?
No, why would it be?
So on August 28th, 2014, you've already talked about this a little bit. We saw 10 articles come out on the same day, 9 additional articles come out. Um, these articles seem to be declaring an end to the gamer identity. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I thought it was fucking stupid. It's like what? Like who's gonna replace gamers? I mean, what? Fucking grandma's gonna replace your main core audience? I mean, let's be honest here. There was $1 billion industry at the time, and it's $1 billion industry now. if you think you're going to get rid of a billion-dollar industry just because of some political bullshit, then you're out of your goddamn mind. People love games. It's a growing hobby. More people are getting into them every day, and it's just people are interested in games and what they bring to the table as opposed to what movies and music don't bring to the table, which is fun, different styles of innovative experiences. Like fun games. Like, and I think a lot of game developers don't understand that the reason Hollywood is declining and why gaming is thriving is because games offer something different to movies and TV. Televised entertainment. Like you can't get something like Devil May Cry or Silent Hill on a movie in the movie. It's like you can't get Space Invaders or Ninja Gaiden in a television show. You could have an adaptation of Ninja Gaiden, but you can't have the same feel of playing Ninja Gaiden, failing and putting yourself in Ryo Hayabusa's shoes. Same thing with Dante. You could imitate his movements on a TV show, but you're not directly controlling them. And like because it's like it has this distinct anime style or a distinct style in itself. And it's not limiting itself based on its tropes. That's what that's why I think gaming has been so successful because it's so diverse in what it offers. It understands that it's supposed to be a marketplace for a different wide variety of niche audiences. It's not supposed to be everyone's into cape shit or everyone's into revenge stories. Gaming offers things that movies and TV can't.
I don't think the articles were trying to say that the gaming industry needs to end, of course. I think what they were saying is that
Well, no, what they were
people have
saying is
a
that they
hang
need to
on,
replace the
Mark,
audience.
Mark.
Oh, sorry. I have that habit. My bad.
No, it's okay. I have the same habit. A little bit. Um, I do want to say though that they weren't saying that the gaming industry should end. They believed, it seems, that the term gamer has a lot of negative connotations attached to it, and that when people think of gamers, they think of angry angry young white men basically who are socially awkward, have a lot of quote unquote like social problems, and that they thought that the gamer identity needed to end because it became associated with that in their eyes.
Well, that's a stereotyping. It's like people that's basically legitimately stereotyping, isn't it? Like anyone could be a gamer. Like people who don't play Candy Crush aren't gamers because they're not interested in games. They're just doing something to pass time. Like someone who plays Super Mario Brothers is technically a gamer if they're dedicated enough and not just playing short bursts. Because gaming, to be a gamer, you need to have a serious interest in gaming and gaming culture, at least in my opinion. Maybe not so the gaming culture part, but definitely gaming in general. And I don't think it's appropriate to attribute that sort of mentality to everyone who calls themselves a gamer, because that's definitely not what gamers are. Gamers are gamers. They love video games. And the people who play video games are so vast and diverse that it's unfair to say that the label should only be applied to fat neckbeards.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's ironic that I didn't really have the negative associations with gamer that these articles said until they said the articles. Like, of course, like we all know the memes of like the South Park guy playing World of
Yeah,
Warcraft. And he's got
exactly.
like
Yeah.
potato chips on his shirt, right? We all have seen the memes, but like I don't think people took that stuff seriously at all, or viewed gamers that way. Really, especially not within the community, insofar as there is a gaming
Well, either
community,
way,
until those articles came out. Like that was like an attack on that identity and promoting that stereotype from within gaming. It seemed, which I was not a big fan
100%,
of.
100%, 100%. Because you have to keep in mind that even though there are a large percent of female gamers, gaming at the end of the day is still a primarily male hobby. More males are interested in tech and gaming than females are, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes not everything is for everyone, and that's perfectly fine. You don't. We shouldn't force. We should make new products to cater to these new demographics, but We shouldn't try to centralize every single game to fit every single market. Like make a checkbox of things that we need quotas we need to hit, because then you just got a bland and boring product, and I should be able to criticize that because it is a bland and boring product. I think games are most interesting when they're diverse and they're plentiful and they're different enough to call themselves different types of games.
That's the games industry I believe in as well, but isn't part of that industry also having these games like Sunset or Gone Home
Of
that are
course, of
very,
course,
very different?
of course, then they should be allowed to compete in the marketplace, but I should also be allowed to voice my opinions on them. I think they should be allowed to compete. I could call them shit. I could call them bad games. I could call them Kusogays, like bet shit game. But like, I think any game, as long as it's not acting maliciously, should be allowed to compete on Steam or GOG or Epic Games or even like consoles, the PS5 and Switch. I think even shovelware should be allowed to be prosperous and get an audience and find its own success in a way, as long as the market embraces it.
Including controversial example from during Gamergate, Hatred,
Yeah,
games like that.
yeah, like Hatred, they should be allowed on Steam, and thankfully it was allowed on Steam after the ESRB fucked up the rating. And I'm very thankful to Valve for that, even though they kind of screwed the pooch when it comes to certain anime games. So that's another discussion for another time. But I think that it's important for games to stand up on their own merits and just be allowed to, market themselves. I think it's a promotion is certainly a problem because only so many shows you could put down. I think the problem going forward with the industry is that there's going to be so many good games that's going to hard to be market. It's going to be hard to sort of market them. But I think these games should exist within their own vacuums, their own niches, and they should find success within the niches and try to branch out little by little, but also understand what the products they are and what they should cater to. Because not everyone should be for everyone. Everything, anyone could play anything, but not everything should be for everyone. If that makes sense.
Why do you think these gaming sites all wrote these articles at the same time?
Because I think they're corrupt. I think they're like they all work in cesspools and they all work in cesspits and they all think alike. And I think they don't welcome outside points of view. And I think they detest anyone who's a Republican or a Trump person, whatever the hell you want to call them. I think they legitimately detest anyone who thinks differently.
Well, Trump wasn't a
And that is
political figure at the time.
no, he wasn't. But I'm saying this using him as an example. I think they generally detest anyone who has a different opinion
If the
and sees
games
them as evil.
if the games press had tried to reform or even just ignored the ethical questions instead of publishing the Gamers Are Dead articles, do you think Gamergate still would have happened or still would have been a big thing if you thought it was already ongoing?
No, I don't think it would. I think if Kotaku got rid of Nathan Grayson as soon as the whole Ferguson Price thing happened, Gamergate would have been avoided. All they had to do was move Nathan Grayson to Polygon and call it a day. Otherwise, Gamergate would have never happened, and the video game industry would turn out how the comic industry is now.
Do you think that Grayson's offense, the lack of disclosure on two articles, and then the possible Robin or not situation, do you think that that in and of itself would warrant his termination?
Yeah, I think so, because not so much the disclosures, but more to do about how he reacted towards the audience when he was met with that backlash. I think not due to Grayson's actions, but I think due to the backlash, he should have been let go. Like, for example, if I was working in a company and I was talking smack about our consumers, I would be let go, or I would be moved to another position. Grayson could have left Kotaku to work on Polygon to do the exact same shit he was doing at Kotaku, but Kotaku was too stubborn to let Grayson go and give him a job at Polygon for whatever reason.
Well, it seems like I don't remember Grayson being especially combative with people on Twitter.
Well, he was. Well, there were banned people from forums and shit like that. So I do think there was a certain level of controversy to the point where Grayson clearly effed up and people were aware of it. Therefore, Grayson should move to another position. That's all there is to it. There's so much controversy. Like, look at it this way: if I could get in trouble for the THQ Nordic thing, I'd never got in trouble for it. But if people were posting 50+ articles and panicking and going crazy over it, like they were with me, having a game developer talk about their product to their audience, then why shouldn't Grayson be in trouble as well for basically not doing the bare minimum, collaborating with game developers and sort of cheating on sort of fucking them literally and having sex with them, doing them favors. Why wouldn't he be moved to another position?
You know, some people would say that yes, there was a controversy. Yes, Nathan Grayson fucked up, but there was also an ongoing harassment campaign at the time. It seemed from their perspective, and
Even
they didn't want
though,
to. They didn't want to. Hang on, let me finish the answer. The question. Um, and because of this ongoing campaign, if they would have caved in to the quote unquote mob, then it would have incentivized them to continue their actions or would have justified it in some way.
well, the fact is that Grayson did cheat on Iran with Zoe Quinn, so
Well,
he did write
Grayson
several
didn't
puff
cheat,
pieces.
but
You know what I mean? He wrote several puff pieces for Quinn without disclosure, and that itself is a violation of ethics. So he should have been moved around a bit, or should have had an apology. I'm sure if Kotaku made a public apology and said, "We'll do better next time," this whole thing would have been blown over, and Trump would have been president.
you think that GamerGate caused Trump to be elected?
No, but I think it played a part in it in the sense that a lot of more people were increasingly going Republican after the bad press, after the slander they got from things like ABC and Disney and Wikipedia and whatnot. Because I do think it made people lean more to the right than it did a lot of damage to the left. I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we'll be
Which
we'll be discussing
people,
that a little bit later on. So I'll
yeah,
I'll
yeah, it's
save
all
some
good.
more further questions. No, no, don't apologize. It was an interesting side, but we'll get to that a bunch more in greater detail later. If the games press thought that there were some negative aspects of gaming culture, what do you think would have been a better and more nuanced way of criticizing that than attacking the gamer identity?
I well, I well are the well the interesting thing is that our gaming journalists gamers themselves, if not, then I don't think they should be working there in the first place. But if they were, I think a better way to do it is just to try to sympathize, try to reason, and try to be more transparent in how they handle certain things. Like, for example, there wasn't a lot of ethics, disclosures before GamerGate, and now they're everywhere, which is good. Which is something GamerGate accomplished. But I think the interesting thing is that they were never transparent about what they did, and the lack of transparency is sort of what led to GamerGate in the first place. So I think if I were to do it differently, I would first of all I would not get any. I would say silence. Do not say a single effing thing about the Zoe Quinn situation. Do not side with Zoe Quinn. Do not side with harassers. Do not say anything. Let Zoe Quinn sort it out and Iran sort it out. That's their own issue.
Well, so
Stay in
that's
your lane, basically.
that's where I
So
think. So I've the last two people I interviewed were anti-GamerGate people, and as part of this book, I try to be fair and I try to present both sides and play devil's advocate to the extent that I can, and I try to do that to, with everybody, including people I agree with. But Hannah Zamora, who I was talking with a few days ago, anti-GamerGate critic, made videos criticizing GamerGate, well, a video criticizing GamerGate, and when I interviewed her, she believes that the games press was basically right to defend Zoe Quinn, or at least to condemn the harassment. That was something that should have happened, and that she thought it was necessary for gaming culture as a whole to take a more proactive step in condemning the types of behavior that happened towards Zoe Quinn.
I strongly disagree because Zoe Quinn is in my personal belief, I think Zoe Quinn harassed Aaron or whatever his name is. Like, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce his name for the life of me. But I think that the I think the problem is that the gaming press or whatever was getting increasingly political when they really should just focus on the games and sort of taking the stance against harassment. Yeah, that's good. Don't harassment bad or whatever, but I think that if it wasn't really involved with them, then they shouldn't have had a part in it because I think what Zoe Quinn and Nathan Grayson and what Iran does and their private life is their private business. And the fact that it got so public because they were hyping it up and there were no answers and Grayson wouldn't address anything, I think that's very telling of the kind of person Grayson is that he demands all the answers from all these different press outlets, these video game companies. Yet when he's in the controversy, they won't let him. He won't say a damn thing. So I think the way I would have handled it is I would have had, if it got to that point, I would have made an apology, shut the fuck up, move Grayson to Polygon, and move on with the next thing.
Well, to be clear, there's like no moving Grayson to Polygon, right? Because Polygon and
No,
Kotaku are two separate
they should
companies.
have moved. I'm
No,
saying
he.
that's what they
So
should have
what
done
you
if
mean
they were
really?
smart.
What you mean is that they should have fired him, right? And then he
Yes,
could get another job somewhere else, maybe.
yes, exactly. That would have been the smart thing to do because they all work together. Factually, they all work together, so it would have been smart to just say, "Hey, Grayson, we're moving you to Polygon. You're no longer with our company. We're sorry, man. You'll get another
But
job
it's
very
it's the
soon."
it's the framing of that though that I'm arguing against. We're going to move him to Polygon. What you mean is that he's going to get fired, and then like maybe
Yeah.
he'll get another job there, or maybe he'll get a job at McDonald's.
Well, it's not a matter of maybe if they were smart, they would get him another place in the Polygon because, like I said before, these people all work together and they're all part of a cesspool. So even though he would be fired, he would also immediately get another job somewhere else. Like wouldn't even take a day. It wouldn't even take 12 hours. They'd just say, "Oh, Polygon is now taking Grayson. We hope to work with him. They work a back deal. They work a back deal together. Whatever it is." And yeah, Kotaku should have fired Grayson after that situation got out of control to cover their ass.
I want to ask Mark, do you think that there is a problem with toxicity in gaming? Like we all know of the stereotypical 12-year-old who shouts the N-word in the Call of Duty lobby, right? We've all experienced that. Like, do you think there is an
I
issue?
think I think it's being very mismanaged. Like there is an issue of it. Like there are some people who go too far, but I think what should be done. I do not believe in permanent bans for games. I think what Microsoft is doing is terrible. Just because some asshole says the N word doesn't mean he should be banned from all of his digital content because he actually paid money for that. But in terms of actual toxicity in games, it really depends on how you define toxicity. Because if, like, for example, if someone wants with a group of friends wants to trash talk, wants to say these derogatory terms, and they should be able to, in the sense that they should be able to choose where they want to play, who they want to play with. Like, if Microsoft gives gamers the ability to police themselves and have them put in lobbies where like-minded people talk shit with each other, then that's good. I think that people should be able, and if they take advantage of that, they should be banned, not permanently banned, but banned for like say a month or a week or whatever, while still having access to the content they paid for. That said, I think that there should be segregated in the sense that trash talkers go with trash talkers, quiet people go with quiet people, friendly people go with friendly people, etc.
Right. That was my
As
view during Gamergate, and it's still my view today that there should be the option to choose what kind of whether it's a dedicated server that has its own private rules, and some of them are going to be trash talking servers, and some of them aren't, or it's going to be like a different matchmaking queues that prioritize putting you with like-minded people. I think that that is the answer. I agree.
I agree with that as well. Yes,
So if the games press had wanted to make a more nuanced critique of aspects of gaming culture that they viewed as negative, instead of going about it the way they did, Would you have been open to hearing them out?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, here's the thing: you when you run a community, you have to want to know where your focus is, right? So if I wanted to run things a certain way, I'd run it the way that I wanted to. Or if I was working for a company, I'd be more strict, etc. But I think if the gaming industry, the gaming journalists people were more fair in regards to how they approach certain topics, I would definitely be willing to hear them out. Because well, I was willing to hear them out even back in the day, but more so when they try to take a fair, balanced, neutral position. That's what actually, what's his name, David Pakman did in the beginning, but then he chickened out once after that dumb TV episode where he was depicted as being too neutral or taking Gamergate's side or whatever. That was a really
Well,
weird thing with
I
him.
think Pac-Man did a pretty good job, and then he later did a second set of interviews with GamerGate people as well, as including one that was
Yeah, I think
extraordinarily
I think he did a
controversial.
good job too. I'm just saying that I think that the problem was that a lot of the people working against Gamergate saw people as enemies, saw that these people as like sort of fascist, Nazi, whatever, and they saw them as enemies who needed to be culled and put in line. And I think that's a terrible mentality. That you can't treat people like that. No one's their enemy, and clearly they disagree with me because they saw people like me as enemies of the state and threats to the gaming industry and threats to their way of life, even though all we wanted to do is just play video games.
Why do you think the game's press didn't just fire Grayson, or didn't just reprimand him, or have an apology, or even just ignore the whole controversy and let it blow over?
I think they're too egotistical, too stubborn, and too egotistical. They had all these connections, all this power, and they didn't want, and they thought that if 4chan just was just cut off from the whole discussing it, they would let it go. Sort of like the Doritos Pope situation where they let it go after a few months and they moved on. That's the thing. Interesting thing about image boards is that they have a very short attention span. So when Gamergate happened, it was a very big shock because back in 2010, 2009, whatever it was, before Gamergate was thing, people assumed that anons would have short attention spans, and you could argue the same thing now. But when Gamergate happened, it was a shock to everyone because they were like because I think that Kotaku and Action and 8chan saved Gamergate from becoming irrelevant because they're keeping the conversation alive. Like the reason, like they were trying so hard to shut us down, it was insanity.
You say keeping the conversation alive. Now, I actually learned a couple weeks ago that there's still a pretty active mega thread on V for Gamergate.
There is,
Is that you
there is
hosting that thread every day or every couple
not
days?
me. No, well, I mean, I allow it, but what's it called? I allow it personally. I think it's an interesting thread. It doesn't really talk about Gamergate stuff as much as it used to, but I don't think I should F with it either because the interesting thing to me is that it's more of a water cooler thread these days, and it doesn't really talk about Gamergate issues. I think we could do a better job with that. But at the same time, it's one of the most popular threads on the board, and I don't want to piss off my user base, and I want to play it safe with the Gamergate thread. So I just allow it as long as no one's spamming it. I don't want they can do whatever they want.
Oh, to be clear, I don't
Like
think you should disallow it. I'm just asking about
exactly,
it.
yeah. Like it's kind of an interesting situation where I think the movement did everything it needed to, and that it should focus on things like censorship and all that. But then you have that in between period of when they're not top, when there's nothing going on. What are they supposed to do then? And they want to post in the thread, and they want to talk about current issues, and they want to talk about certain games, but maybe they don't want to have make a whole new thread just to talk about a certain thing. We have a thread for that, but it's not as popular as the Gamergate thread. So it's kind of interesting to me. I'm kind of unsure how to handle the Gamergate thread because yeah, the movement's basically over in my eyes. But for people who, I mean, it's over in the sense of GamerGate. The hashtag is over. Now it's more focused on censorship and localization issues, stuff like that. But I think it's kind of hard to disallow it because even though I believe the movement's basically accomplished all it could, it's also the biggest pillar of the board right now. So I'm just gonna play it safe and just allow it as long as no one's spamming it or going completely off the rails. It's like whatever.
So, do these people view GamerGate is still happening?
You would have to ask them. Personally, I don't think they do. I think they just have fun with it, but
Well,
it's
they
like
are running operations though. Operation Maximum Max Revive, Operation Trajan, Operation
yeah,
Download
but
and Conquer.
99% of the posters don't actually take part in the operations, unfortunately. There are operations, there are people who want to do things, but it's very hard to spread that sort of operation because there's so much to do and no clear goals on what to do. Like for example, with when Valve introduced paid mods, we fought against that because we had a clear goal of knowing where to spam them, which was spam their fax machine with dark ink and have them sort of lose money through that.
Wait, you did
And
what?
by losing money, Valve changed course because Valve didn't want to get involved if they lost a little bit of money because that's how every corporation is because they don't want to lose money over this dumb decision.
So
It's
wait,
like just
hang on. I
over.
just want to clarify. You guys you flooded Valve's fax machines?
Yeah, we flooded Valve's fax machines because we didn't want them forcing paid mods on the community, and we told them this is not what we want. This is us voicing our opinion. If you're not hearing us, we'll do things the hard way and we'll flood your fax machines and we'll speak with our wallets. I thought that was a brilliant move because as
When
long
was
as you're
this?
making this was around 2017, 2016 when Valve introduced paid mods in the Steam store and then backed down after peer pressure.
Do you think that that's a good thing to do? A good thing to operate? A good way to operate?
If it makes change, yeah. I mean, as long as no one's being hurt, and as long as Valve can afford it, which they can, if they just lose a little bit of money and they understand that hey, people don't want this, vote with your wallet, then as long as no one's getting hurt, then for sure, do it. But we weren't doxing Valve people. We weren't attacking Valve people. We were just harmlessly flooding their fax machine with dumb meat.
Some people thought that Gamergate should have taken a different tack here. That Gamergate should have started taking on industry practices like microtransactions with Battlefront, games like that. This live service model that has become extremely controversial in recent years, and begin to tackle issues with the industry itself. And I guess the
It
Valve
has
thing
though.
would.
It has though. Look at Project Operation Rainstorm, where we were attacking, not attack. I don't like using the word attacking. Well, we were heavily criticizing Nintendo for censoring their games, and we were giving a lot of criticism towards Nintendo, and we were making a lot of not a couple people aware of how Nintendo was messing with their product and wasn't partaking in ethical localization practices.
Yeah, I can't speak to Operation Rainstorm. I've not heard of that. I do know of Torrential
Torrential
Downpour
downpour.
though.
My apologies.
Torrential Downpour.
Torrential downpour.
Yes,
Downpour. Yes,
and
that's
that
what.
wasn't just Nintendo. That was taking on localization practices across the board.
Yeah, but I consider that part of Gamergate. I consider that the Gamergate too,
I do too
because
because I view it as being creative freedom related.
yeah, but that's still what Gamergate was supposed to be about is allowing people to make their own stuff. You're not getting people blacklisted and all this other crazy shit that the industry tends to do, and just let people create what they want to create. Let them compete in the marketplace. That's what Gamergate is supposed to be about. Is that's the end goal of Gamergate, just wanting people to make their own stuff without being harassed or blacklisted by the larger industry or being called sexist or being called monsters for just making fun games.
What do you think of games journalism, Mark?
I think it's a joke.
What kind of reforms would you like to have seen happen?
Bring on actual gamers. Bring on people who understand the market. not just Twitter people, but people who disagree with you, people who care about games, bring those people on, not just YouTubers, not just people who don't like games, not just people but people who are different to you enough where you'll disagree with them, but they offer something different than what you don't. I think the game journalism needs to be more open towards gamer games and people they disagree with. If I was head of IGN, I would mix the SJW types with the GamerGate types and have them make content as long as they're act productively making content towards their niches, whatever you want to, however you pronounce niche, whatever. And the SJWs would cover the more progressive games, while the GamerGate people would cover the more action-oriented games or the right-winger games or whatever we want to call it. And I think it's important that the marketplace stays free or becomes free, because if we don't have a free market, then the market will stagnate and will become uninteresting.
You said earlier that the games press has gotten a lot better at disclosures, but they were also very reticent to respond to critics.
Yes, I mean I didn't say they were better at responding to disclosures. I said they have to respond to disclosures because the FTC requires them to.
I know you've already
It's not
touched.
like they.
Good.
I'm sorry. It's not like they want to do that. They have to do that. Otherwise, they will get in legal trouble.
I know you've already touched upon this a little bit, but so I can skip this question. I might skip a couple of the questions if we've already touched upon it,
Yeah,
if
that's
that's
fine. That's
okay.
fine.
Do you think that
Fine.
there's still a role for good games journalism in the world?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think that if people are interested in games, there will be people who want to know more about games, and I sort of think YouTube is sort of filling in that gap, and that YouTube is the future of games journalism. But it's also in this place where it's also becoming a sort of a marketing thing, and people aren't really, and the wrong people are getting successful off YouTube because I think a lot of YouTubers feel they don't have the same limitations that journalism has, and that's going to be, and they just become shills for games, and I just think that's bad. But I do think there is a market for people who want legitimate opinions on video games. Yeah,
Actually, I'll ask the question because I
yeah.
know you talked about what you would do if you were Nathan Grayson, but what would you do if you were Steven Totillo?
What it was, I would. I already said what I would do if I was stupid still. I'd fire Nathan Grayson. I'd move him to Polygon, and I'd issue a public apology saying we'll be more careful in the future, and then leave it at that. We apologized. We're done. We thank you for being enthusiastic about our content, etc.
I know we've already touched upon Game Journal Pros. Is there anything else you want to add about that?
Yeah, it was fucked up.
All right. Any thoughts on Deep Freeze?
Deep freeze. Deep freeze is interesting because I think that if it was actually a fleshed out project, it could have been something special. I think, unfortunately, the guy who ran Deep Freeze had a lot of complications, and I hope that one day it could relaunch into something really good. But for right now, it's just a project stuck in stasis, and it has a lot of potential to be a really good project.
Do you have any thoughts on the SPJ Airplay conference?
The whole conference,
SPJ Airplay?
yeah, I think that what's it called? I think that BJ, I think they tried, but I think that ultimately the SPJ doesn't make a difference. I don't mean this towards. I think it was ultimately a waste of time because the people who police journalism don't actually do anything. It's like they all work for the same. I think. Sorry. Let me think about this for a sec. I think Airplay was just naive in the sense that these people weren't going to change, even if Airplay acknowledged them. So I think it's a market issue rather than a journalism issue.
When you say a
Can
market
I
issue,
address
what do you
Can I
mean?
address something in the chat real quick?
Sure.
Um, I do not want to delete any boards, and I don't hate poll. I just don't care for them. I'm not an admin figure. I just, because Michael Kristoff is saying things like, "Oh, I'm lying. I want to delete boards," and that's just untrue. That's just not true. I believe that HN should really just allow whatever's legal and just be as free as possible. That's not related to Gamergate. That's just my opinion, and that's just addressing this point. But let's continue the interview. My
Did you
apologies.
watch? Oh, you're fine. Did you watch you watch the Airplay event live or after the fact?
I did. I did. I found it interesting that there was a bomb threat on the stream because it really goes to show the kind of people we're dealing with. That they say we bomb. They say we bomb things, and they say we issue death threats and all this other stuff. But their side does it too. Ain't that interesting?
Well, if you were, I've interviewed Michael Koretsky as part of this project, and he's watching most of these interviews, if not all of them. Do you have any feedback for him on how he could have done better then?
Not particularly,
Why do you think the media didn't cover SBJ Airplay?
because they don't care.
Some people believe that Gamergate should have ended after Airplay. What did you think?
That's dumb. Like, why would it end after airplay? I mean, yes, they accomplished its goals, but there are obviously other issues that needed to be addressed, such as the localization issue in the industry. Oh, by the way, I'm not sure if you saw, but there's someone else restreaming your thing. I'll post it privately. So yeah,
Someone
it's like,
someone streaming my stream?
yeah, I thought
Oh,
that was
that's
funny.
fine. That's a pretty common thing in the streamer world.
Painted the truth, but yeah, I think it's interesting that even though there's issues to be made, like the localization from the Nintendo and Sony blocking games and all this stuff, I don't think in that sense Gamergate is over. I think after Airplay, there's still more work to be done in terms of localization and how corruption and all this other stuff. So while Gamergate was acknowledged by the SBJ, it ultimately doesn't mean anything. And this isn't an insult to the guy who organized Airplay. It's just my personal opinion.
So you thought that after Airplay there was a lot of work that needed to be done, that Gamergate should continue. But now that there's people on your board who want to either bring Gamergate back possibly or keep it going, in their eyes, you think that they're wrong.
I think Gamergate has just evolved into things like torrential downpour and stuff. I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting because Gamergate has sort of evolved into multiple different movements after its initial gaming journalism push. You have the quartering people who are just upset over SJWism, that you have the fucking people who are upset that, for example, Capcom is censoring their games. You have like the Trump people. It's very, very interesting Gamergate because there was sort of the start of something much bigger, in addition to being the consumer revolt against corruption and unethical activities and all that other stuff.
I want to ask, you co-founded 8chan Moe with
I
Acid
did.
Man.
Yeah, I
Whatever.
basically I basically threw money at it, and he was the guy who was behind the technical stuff. What
Right.
I did is I basically laid out the plan of what we should name it, how we should go about it, and what should we do, how he should basically, what my I gave him some suggestions, and he basically took over after like a month because I didn't want to get involved in certain things because I wanted to get a real job doing whatever it was. Like I'm not really, even though I help out with that boy, I'm not
Right.
officially
But what I wanted to
an
ask,
admin or
Mark,
whatever.
and I am
Yeah,
interviewing Acid Man too, albeit he's only doing a text interview for the book.
that's fine.
But whatever happened to Gamergate HQ?
It's still around. It's under hn.moe/gg. It's mainly an archive of GamerGate boards made from V. And yeah,
They didn't keep it going like the Mega Thread or like Kotaku
they kept
Reaction.
it going. It's on GG. You go to /GG and it's there. That's the original name for the GGHQ. The reason why we moved to GGHQ is because Frederick actually, when the HN first started, the board GG was taken up by a shitposter, and Frederick removed him. After a year or so, Frederick didn't like that, and he took away the GG board and gave it back to the shitposter who ruined the board. Then Acid sort of came in and made GGHQ after GG was sort of destroyed by the administration, by the shitposter, or whatever.
Well, I'm looking at the /GG board right now, and like you say, it's an archive. Every single topic is bump locked.
Basically, yeah, because it's an archive. I mean, I didn't really use GTHQ back in the day. I'll be honest. I thought it was very important to have, but at the same time, you have to understand what GamerGate's goals were and how it sort of evolved. Like, I don't think there's a need for a GTHQ. Obviously, if someone wants to make it, they can, but I just don't think there's a need for it right now. Oh,
Did
yeah,
did you support Operation Disrespectful Nod?
that was the email stuff, right? Yeah, I supported that.
Did you send any emails
100%.
yourself?
I did. I supported 100%. I think that was the right thing to do. Vote with your wallet, make your voice known, say what you can, and you know, make sure these companies know where you're coming from, sympathize, be pacifistic about it, and know and have your these companies know that you don't want to do business with them if they're going to support unethical practices. That was the best thing Gamergate ever did, was use that tactic that the left used and worked it against them, in my opinion.
Did you support contacting advertisers over ethical violations only, or would you also
Yeah,
support using it over opinion pieces that you didn't agree with?
only ethical violations. I think opinion pieces are a different thing entirely because I think opinion pieces could be basically written by anyone and they don't have to be taken seriously. So anyone can make an opinion piece, just not on Kotaku. But I think if, like, for example, if Kotaku is calling for saying that what's it called, saying X gamers should be banned for doing them for saying trans women are women or trans women are men or whatever we want to call it, the political angle, then that's something entire. That's whatever. Then that's, you contact the advertisers. You tell them, hey, these guys don't represent us. We don't want them. We don't want you to. We want you to work with someone else. And
So wait,
like I
hang
said, it's
on.
all about. So what's up?
It seems like a contradiction there. That
I'm
you
what
should
I'm
only
trying to. I'm trying.
contact.
I'm thinking while I'm speaking. But what I'm trying to say is that the idea is to vote with your wallet and voice your opinion.
Right, so you said that you only support contacting the advertisers over ethical violations, but then you said also if Kotaku writes an article calling for quote unquote political stuff, then that's also fair game.
Well, I mean, political stuff when they want it to, like, when they imply someone should be fired and blacklisted. Like, yeah, maybe. I mean, technically, maybe. I mean, it really depends on the opinion, honestly.
What kind of opinions do you think are outside the bounds of freedom of speech in this regard?
Well, it depends on what they're calling for. If they're calling for blacklisting, then consumers should be able to vote with their wallets and contact advertisers to say, "Hey, we don't want you to work with the site. These guys don't represent our interests."
So if Kotaku
And
writes an article and they say that I think that Xbox Live should enforce rules against misgendering in the game, on their system.
then
Then
then gamers
is
should
that
be able to.
blacklisting in your eyes?
I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
Is that blacklisting in
If
your eyes?
no, before that, if Kotaku said
If they wrote an
Xbox
article saying
gamers,
that they think that Xbox Live should enforce rules against misgendering, for instance, they expressed that opinion. should that be something that you would contact the advertisers of Kotaku for? If they're not targeting specific individuals, not individual people on Xbox Live, but they're advocating for Xbox Live as a general matter to change their policies.
Yeah, I think I would. Like I said, it's a matter of voicing your opinion and voting with your wallet.
Yeah, I think it would what though?
What?
You said yeah, you think that they should. What do you think
I
should
think
happen
pe-
in
I think
Kotaku?
people I think people should be able to do whatever they want, voice their individual opinion. So if they want to organize and send emails and protest, then they should be able to.
But do you support that personally? In that
It really depends.
in this situation.
It really depends. I mean, personally, I support it because I'm in the mindset people should do whatever they want. But you know, like I said, it depends. Like personally, I do support it. Yes, but not
Do you
everything
think it's
related to that.
anti-free speech to cost Kotaku money not over ethical violations but over opinions that you don't like?
No, because Kotaku has alternatives. You see, and it's not a matter of opinion I don't like. It's Kotaku's calling for blacklisting. Blacklisting is illegal. Well, it's not illegal, but it's like, how do I say this? Like, if Kotaku wants to talk a lot of smack, and then we as consumers should voice our opinions. And if Kotaku doesn't listen to us, then we should have them listen by affecting their bankrolling. People who bankroll them that want to advertise to us, we should say, hey, we don't want you to advertise on Kotaku because they don't represent us, and we want to see your work elsewhere.
So you're fine with there being financial consequences for opinions that you don't like. Again, I'm not talking about blacklisting any specific individual or even groups of individuals. I'm
It's not about opinions I don't like. It's about how do you say it? It's about targeting. It's about demographics and how you're attacking your own audience. Like I'm trying to think of a good answer to this. You got me on the thing because I do think that if you're working in a professional setting, there are certain things you shouldn't say in the sense that you have a market, you're sort of targeting that market, and you don't want to piss off that market. Otherwise, they'll get mad and their whole shit flinging. And the advertisers have a right to not advertise with that market or that website. So as a consumer, I feel I have the right to protest. So if I wanted to protest against Kotaku, then I should have that right. Do I personally support it? It's kind of depends on the piece, I would say, because if someone's just saying, "Oh, video games are bad," whatever, it's like, why are you writing on a video game site where you hate video games? Why can't you let someone else have that job?
So okay, that's a good, okay. You brought this example up. If Kotaku writes an article saying that video games are stupid, well, there was a games journalist who did that though. They didn't write for Kotaku. They say that video games are stupid. Let's say, and you think, wow, that's a bad opinion. I'm going to contact their advertisers.
You should have the right to do so.
Right to do so.
What whether
I
the
agree.
whether
People
the
should have the
advertisers
right
do,
to do so, but is it moral for you to do so? Is that creating an atmosphere of more free speech or less free speech by doing that?
I think if I think that as long as there's competitors, as long as there's no monopoly, if like here's the thing, Kotaku and their ilk are they work all together. So like there's proof of that with Game Journals Pros. In that situation, I believe due to them working together, that it is appropriate to contact advertisers and sort of attack them financially. But if someone just had an opinion and said, "Hey, I hate XYZ," it may not be appropriate, but they certainly have the right. It's a complicated subject to tackle because at one point, I believe people should express whatever they want. But on the other, I also believe in consumer freedom and the right to advertise wherever you want and that sort of thing.
Would you feel the same way if people were contacting the advertisers of 8chan or contacting the advertisers of, let's say, Fox News and trying to get them to pull
I
out.
actually don't like Fox News, but I get your point where you're trying to say. Yeah, I would feel the same way because unfortunately that's a valid tactic. And if the gaming journalism sites aren't going to listen to us, which we tried to talk with them, and we did try to reason with them at some point. We actually went to the head of Walker and tried to mass email him, and that didn't work. So what at that point, what could you do? You go to the advertisers and hope they change their minds. Sort of like the Valve situation.
Do you think that by going after the money of these websites and hurting their pocketbooks, that GamerGate made it more likely or less likely that they'd be willing to come to the table?
I think it'd make them more likely because the reason I say more likely is look at what Valve did with paid mods. They didn't double down. They simply backed off. They saw what their audience was pissed, and they backed off. They didn't try to double down. They didn't say, "Hey, this is our storefront now. If you don't like it, you get fucked." Which is what they did which is what game journalists did during GamerGate. Valve took the opposite approach and just abandoned the paid mods thing and let Bethesda do what Bethesda usually does. So I think sometimes some companies should just take the loss and just understand that not everyone's out to get them. You got to take the L.
Were you involved in the creative freedom side of GamerGate?
What do you mean by creative freedom?
Uh, Artistic freedom that game developers. We've talked about this earlier in the stream, but it's one of the questions of the list, and I'm going through them.
Of course, I support the artistic freedom of game development and artists and whatever. I believe that games should have their own market. Not every game is for everyone. Game publishers, developers need to understand their demographics. They need to understand their niches, and they need to understand that you can make multiple games for different audiences without alienating all of them, without alienating any of them. Just make different games. Just make interesting games. Make different interesting games
You said a few
with
times
different
now.
markets.
You said a few times now that they should understand their demographics. What do you mean?
I mean, understand that not every game is for everyone. Like for example, if I wanted to play Ninja Titty Simulator 49 and I like those type of games, and Stacy doesn't like those type of games, and Stacy prefers Walking Simulator 47, then I believe I should, vote with my wallet and buy Titty Ninja 47, whatever number I used, and vote in the market, free and balanced market, while also supporting not with my wallet, but supporting the fact that Walking Simulator has a market and accepting that. I think that. Sorry, I've been talking for a long time, but I think it's important that games aren't restricted by the government or publishers, not publishers, but distributors or whatever. I think it's better. The more games we have in the market, the better.
What do you think of arguments about video games causing or reinforcing real world sexist attitudes?
I think that's bullshit. I think it's bullshit, and they have no ground to stand on.
Well, let's play devil's advocate a little bit. So, obviously, everything you encounter and experience in life is probably going to have like some degree of influence over your perception of reality and the way you interact with the world, correct?
Correct.
So, you watch a movie and wow, that was an amazing film. It inspired you to think about something differently. It inspired you to maybe pick up a new hobby you wouldn't have considered otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you play a video game and it can have the same impact, right? It's an artistic work, right?
Well, it depends on the game.
Well, does it though?
It does because games aren't art. They're they're just electronic toys at the end of the day. If you want to make that argument, like a game can be art, it could be focused on its artistic merit, but I don't believe it to be art. I think games are best when they're basically adult toys, when people are having fun with them, or socializing with them, or even using them as pieces of art. I basically, I think games are better as games than they are as art pieces because I think there could be a merit to games art, but I don't think they are art within themselves.
Well, see, the way I look at it, I view games as being art. I also view movies as being art. And I think that like bad movies, quote unquote, are still works of art. Like but they can
Hmm.
also be entertainment, right? They serve multiple roles. And video games especially serve multiple roles because on one end it's an artistic work, on the other end it's entertainment, and on the other end it's a game. Like games have existed for thousands of years. It's a part of human nature, it seems.
Yes, yes. I think there is elements of a game, more than one element. I think there's artistic elements. I think there's game elements. But games that should be focused as games and not as art pieces. But if the market wants more artistic games, then they should be allowed to make these artistic games.
So going back to the devil's advocate here, someone makes a video game and it can inspire people to think about things differently, perhaps, right? In a lot of positive ways,
Yeah.
right? You play you play a basketball game. Let's say you play like a basketball video game, and you're like, "Wow, this was a lot of fun. I'm gonna go play basketball in real life." Very simple, basic example, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that somebody could play, let's say, a highly sexualized game, or let's say they just play Tomb Raider, like the old school Tomb Raider games, and they could be like, "Wow, these female characters are obviously Laura Croft has obviously got a big rack. It's made to appeal to a certain type of fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Could that influence the way that someone views women in real life?
No, because Laura Croft isn't a real woman.
Do you think that any
Like,
media has the ability to? Go ahead. I'll let you finish your point. Sorry.
no, no, I don't think any. I think that you could get certain ideas from certain projects, but like for example, you could get a good idea from a book or a movie or a game, but at the same time, it's like studies have shown that people aren't going to murder billions of people because they played a game of GTA. They're more likely to walk grandma down the street. Now, it's the same thing. The same logic applies to sex towards games. If a game doesn't make you a violent shooter, then it won't make you a misogynistic pervert. Well, maybe not a pervert, but a misogynistic harasser or a groper, whatever you want to call it. It's like people know fiction is fiction and reality is reality. They may be a little shy, but that doesn't mean they're going to go up and touch you just because they play Laura Croft or Senran Kagura.
But do you think that like there's a difference though between like the action that an individual's take? Of course, like actions can be inspired by ideas, and it seems
Yeah.
so. Let's say 1984, right? 1984 is a book with a lot of political themes. And have you read this book, George Orwell?
I haven't read the book, but I get the basic idea. It's basically Big Brother and all this other tyrannical shit.
Sure, yeah. And now, obviously, a lot of people look at this and they're like, wow, this is a great critique of totalitarianism.
Hmm.
And they adopt a worldview, perhaps, or maybe they already had that worldview, but they become slightly more reinforced in their worldview that totalitarianism is bad, right?
Yeah, but that's not the fault of the book. The book only gives you the information it has. Like, I would argue that a book is a part of a person's identity in the same as in the same way a group of friends could give you information. Like, how do I explain this? The world surrounds us shapes our worldview. Obviously, if we're only surrounded by women in scaly clothing and perverted men and whatever, yeah, we may become a pervert, but that's not related to games or books or whatever. That's related to the world around us. Like, art is only one part of our life. It's not the be all and end all of what we are as humans.
Right, there's multiple different competing things, but like insofar as art or entertainment or video games like play some small role in what we perceive as the world and what we perceive as things that we interact with in the world, do you think that that could have any influence on the way people think about things and possibly act as a
Well,
result?
it depends on. I would argue that it depends on the individual. Someone mentally deranged may get the wrong idea, but 99.9% of people don't think that games are real life. They don't. They understand to separate fiction from reality, and they don't try to do the acts you see on GTA in real life. They don't grab guns. They don't shoot random civilians, and it's like it's mainly, I think. I'm trying to go with this. It's mainly an action. It's mainly just a source of entertainment, and I think there are ideas like there are ways that entertainment can shape our world, but it's not the be all or end all of what we do.
So would you take issue if somebody said that entertainment, including video games and artistic works, shape our world to some small degree, that we want to talk about how that happens to that small degree, and maybe like we should think about the games we make and make them differently.
Well, yeah, we could make the argument that the news also gives shows the risk of making someone a mass murderer because the news shows President Tarrant shooting a bunch of Muslims and being and saying, "Oh, he's doing all this horrible shit." Why shouldn't I go shoot up a mosque because some asshole decided to shoot up? I mean, these we're dealing with mentally people who shouldn't even be outside. Like these people should be locked up, like, and have help. These people need help. These are the kind of people we're talking about. 99% of people don't need that help, but it's like everything in life is a risk. You can't just go out and try to educate what doesn't exist.
Some political activists believed that using social media campaigns to demand artists change artistic elements of their work was a good thing, such as hashtag change the cover. What do you think of this tactic?
I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong because like once again, I agree with creative freedom and the market and all that. I believe people should make what they want to make, and I don't think I think obviously gamers, people interested in the product should voice their opinions and developers should use that to sort of shape what they want to make. But at the end of the day, it's up to the developer what they want to make, and it's up to us as a consumer of what we want to buy.
What do you think the line is between censorship and criticism?
When you demand change, I think censorship is where you demand everything be changed to suit a market that doesn't exist, or for personal sensibilities. I think that like for example, if a market in Japan is getting a different product with the same name as the one we're promised in the US, I think that's deceptive. Like for example, Fire Emblem Fates, Fire Emblem Myth. If Nintendo is changing gameplay and changing content and altering certain things other than what needs to be changed and what needs to be done, then I think that's unethical. Just translate it to Japanese, do the best job you can, and make it palatable for English speaking audiences. Translate it. Don't add memes. Don't add unnecessary features unless the Japanese audience is unless there was in the original Japanese version. Just give us the product we were marketed. I think that it has to do with marketing product and showing what the product is. And sorry, I'm actually a little tired, but they just show off what they show off what the product is, and how it turns out the end product isn't accurate to what we see online or what we see from the publisher, and how we've basically been fed one big fat lie about the product we want to buy. And I don't think it's ethical to change a game so much to the point where it's a completely different game. I think games as a product should be marketed as intended, as they were marketed.
Look, I agree 1,000% on the localization stuff, to be clear. And that was actually a later question that was coming up. But when it comes to, hang on one second, I want to think about how I want to word this.
No worries, they're good.
Okay, I was talking with an anti-GamerGate person recently. They were pro-GamerGate, and then they became anti-GamerGate later on. They were saying that there's not much of a difference between someone saying I demand you take this out, and someone saying, I don't like this, this is bad, and I'm going to criticize that, because ultimately they both have a chilling effect on the creator and on games like that being made in the future. That the impact, the de facto impact of just criticizing games in and of itself carries with it the potential of a chilling effect.
I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna say something really bold and just say that's really dumb because without criticism, we can't make a better product. We can't see our flaws. I think it's important to be criticized so we know what we want to do, what we want from product, and sort of where we want to guide our vision towards what we want to make. It's like, for example, with V, I know what audience I want. I know. Sorry, I'm just really tired, but I know what audience I want. I know what their needs are. I obviously don't know everything though, so I speak with the website. I speak with the community. I try to grasp what I got right, what I got wrong, and I do it very frequently. I talk with the community very frequently. I look at the meta thread. I see what people are complaining about, and should be the same for every product where people should take feedback with a grain of salt. Obviously, there are people who want to take advantage of you, want to see you bleed and burn, but there in between those thin lines, there's some message you could clearly make out if you pay attention enough. Where there's a message, like for example, if someone's telling you, say, oh, I'm being censored, blah 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 blah, they may be saying, oh, I want this certain type of content that's not allowed on my board to be allowed on my board. Or for example, I want if oh I'm oh blah 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 fucking sorry. I'm trying to say a good example. If someone doesn't like the outfits in Mortal Kombat and say, "Oh, NetherRealms makes ugly women," that's a criticism for saying NetherRealms should do a better job modeling women or modeling men, or just have a better, more coherent art style. Or they don't. I like the art style they do, and then it's up to NetherRealms if they want to either take the advice or put their own spin on the advice or just tell people, oh, this is the direction we want to
Well,
go in.
okay, so the reason I think Bash Fluff is the anti-GamerGate person who made this argument. I think the reason that they would make this argument is that anytime you criticize something, especially an artistic work, because that criticism is out there publicly in the ether, it de facto creates a chilling effect. So, for instance, let's say someone makes Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. Let's say that this game gets a lot of criticism publicly. Whether or not they're demanding the game not be released in the West or not, whether or not they argue that at all, the fact that there's criticism in and of itself de facto puts a message out there that some game developers are going to see and that they're going to be like, well, maybe we shouldn't make games like this anymore because we're going to get a lot of backlash for it.
Yeah. And what's the point they're trying to make that
Because you said
what's it called?
demand. You said that the issue is when they demand it be changed.
Yeah, yeah, that's the issue. Because if the developer isn't free to make what they want to make, that's an issue. I mean, obviously, there's like things like project deadlines or visions and goals. Like if the developer wants to make a certain project, or if they want to change out anything, that's on the developer. And as a consumer, we vote with our wallets. We always say, "Hey, this is what we want to do. This is what we want you to do." The developer could either take that to heart, or they could just say, for lack of a better term, "No, we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on what we have." And then gamers could criticize it. They could make their voices heard, and they could not buy it and then the developer has a point of reference to work on. Say if the developer wants, you could either take that previous feedback and implement it to the next project, or they could learn from their mistake. Is what I'm trying to say. They could learn from it and see why their project failed or why their project didn't meet their status quo or the quota, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's important to voice your opinion. Otherwise, the developer won't have any idea why the game fails if no one's interested in it, or why the game didn't appeal to its core demographic or whatnot.
We have a question from Mist Sonata, an anti-Gamergate person in the chat, and it is. Hang on, let me scroll back up and get it. Okay. If media can't influence your actions, then why do people spend millions of dollars on advertising?
If people can't influence your actions, why do people spend millions of dollars on advertising? Interesting question. I think it's because that's not true. I think advertising, it appeals to certain markets. Like, for example, if I spend my ad, if I have a product and I want to place an ad, I would focus that ad towards the market I want to target. I would put it on a computer site and say, "Hey, we have a keyboard. You may be interested in this. You see our keyboard. If someone looking for a keyboard sees our ad, they'll click on the ad and we'll make money, and the customer gets the product, and everyone's happy." Should I elaborate, or you understand where I'm coming from?
No, you're fine. People in the chat are asking me to ask you about Sonic games that you've streamed.
So yeah, I basically know a guy who gets Sonic games early, and I was just like really tired and delusional at one point. I was streaming Sonic Media, and I was having input lag. By the way, I have a really crappy capture card from this company called Genki. I think it's like really plug and play, but it only works at 30 frames a second. And the games I was playing, the Sonic games with, were running at 60. So unfortunately, I was getting a lot of input lag and didn't notice it until I found out that the thing only runs at 30 frames a second, which I found to be very interesting.
So you play these leaked games publicly before they're released?
Yeah, why not? People are going to ask me questions anyway.
Yeah,
Might as
I
well
don't.
have some fun with it.
The chat was acting like this was some spicy question. I don't think there's. I'm fine with that, bro. Like whatever. Like, that's
It's
between you and
just it's a
Sega,
joke
so
question.
none of my
It's just
business.
funny, is what it is. It's just funny stuff. So basically, I legally purchased the copy of the game. I don't get it illegally or anything like that. The local store breaks street date. I get my copy. I get a Nintendo Switch or PlayStation, whatever what I use. I think I only used Nintendo Switch so far. I redeemed the download code. That was the interesting thing. The download code was live, and I played the game throughout its entirety. And I made some terrible mistakes due to the input lag and just being tired in general. And it was a lot of fun because a lot of people were very interested in the game, and I was the first one who leaked it because I was the first one who had access, the first one who leaked a digital game before. Because no one thought this game was going to be leaked because it was digital, right? So it was surprising because the Switch just came out and Sonic Mania was out a week or two early, and no one had leaks. No one could crack Switch games yet. So I was the only guy with who had Sonic Mania early, and I streamed the whole game, and I had like 1,000 viewers or something crazy like that, and it was a lot of fun. But also, I had a lot of stress at one point because I was tired, hallucinating, and I needed to sleep. I wanted to pass the oil ocean boss, and whatever.
All right. Anything else you want to say about the localization of games and how content is removed or changed?
I think it needs to be more. I think they need to remove the whole localization mentality of putting memes and dumb things that don't exist in the Japanese versions into these games. I think obviously, if there's quality of life changes, they need to be approved by the developers, and they need to have more conversations when it comes to localization or translation. I think the focus should be on translating games rather than localizing them, because localization is a completely different beast from translation. I think more games should be translated than localized, in my opinion, anyway.
Some critics of Gamergate have argued that the movement was mostly or entirely right wing. Do you think that was accurate?
No, I think people became right wing as a result of the slander against the Gamergate movement. But in the beginning, I don't think Gamergate was right wing in general.
Okay, so you think that Gamergate became right wing. Well, why do you think that
Yes,
is?
it was slandered by the left. We reached out to the left. We reached out to the media. We said, "Hey, these people are not acting in our best interests. They are acting in an improper, unethical way." And then they did a story attacking us for basically calling them out or calling out their buddies. So I think because a lot of journalists lean left, that gave people a sour taste in their mouth and made them go more center right or right wing. because they saw that the institutions in place that weren't acting in their best interests, so they went towards more of a right wing sort of thing.
Do you want to talk about your political views or philosophy?
Sure. I'm a libertarian at heart, center right. I believe that sorry, it's still like to talk about this, but I believe that the market should be free. There shouldn't be anything blocking or influencing the market in the sense that ESG should be illegal. We obviously should work with other countries, but not if those countries try to take advantage of us. We should have tariffs and shit like that. I consider myself right wing or center right, depends on where the spectrum is. Um, some people call me classic liberal. Maybe I consider myself mostly a modern libertarian because I believe the market should be as free as possible, and people do better in private institutions than when the government comes in and fucks everything up. I don't believe in big government. I think government should shrink down to the size of a peanut. I think when government gets involved, big government gets involved, things only go down the shitter because, as it's proven with the TSA and all these other big organizations, big government doesn't work.
Yeah, we could probably go like 2 hours about political disagreements, but that's not the point of this interview. So,
Yeah, no
you did
worries,
say
it's
that
all good.
ESG should be illegal, though. Is that consistent with your libertarian views?
It is, yes. At least I believe so. Because the problem with ESG is that it polices the free market. Like there's a private monopoly controlling the rest of the government, not government, controlling the rest of the market, policing the free market, and telling people, hey, if you don't do things a certain way, we will take your money, and I think that should be criminal because we will give you money if you do the things we want or try to police the free market. At that point, I think the government should get involved and say, "Hey, cut that shit out. You're not the government. Stay in your lane."
Isn't that just actors within a private market influencing
No, I
that
don't think
market?
it is because the difference between actors in a private market and ESG is that ESG is trying to police the market. It's trying to make companies do things that they wouldn't normally do, like the whole woke thing.
But they're trying to
I
they're trying to
think
police the market by using market forces. Assuming, like, not talking about
yes,
government involvement, but just talking about private actors like hedge funds that use
yes,
ESG to decide who they're going to invest in, for instance.
yes. I think ESG. I think companies like BlackRock and Vanguard should be broken up. I know it goes it's contradiction a little bit, but I think they've gone too big to the point where they're sort of like becoming the next government and like Aristocrat and Cyberpunk or some sort of crazy shit like that. I think they should be broken up into multiple different companies, compete with the rest of the free market, and not try to dictate certain things.
Have your political views changed since Gamergate or due to Gamergate?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. I think it was more of I didn't really have any political views during Gamergate. I think I was mostly left, a little center left, where I think the government should provide for me. Now I realize that government's full of shit, and the government is the worst. Government should be small. They should do the bare minimum. They should not get involved in the private sector unless the private sector is destroying itself, like with ESG. People should compete. People should people should compete. People should make money. People should be happy. But at the same not but at the same time, it's like if you have someone controlling the market, then something needs to be done about that. I mean, I'm not a political expert. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think either big government or private corporations should control the individual private organizations should have a monopoly or control the free market. The free market is best when it's free, at least in my opinion.
I'll play the politics game a little bit with this. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but
Yeah.
you recognize that the state is capable of depriving people of individual liberty. Do you think it's also possible that private actors also deprive individuals of liberty, or that by lacking access to certain resources, i.e., like education, healthcare, etc., that individuals are less free.
I don't think they're less free. I think businesses should have rights just like everyone else has rights, but obviously they should be broken down if they get too powerful or have enough money to work through the government or something crazy like that. I mean, the only issue I have with BlackRock and Vanguard is that they're trying to police attitudes in the market. Like they're trying to make the movie industry and Disney and all these other companies get extra money. They're not letting companies compete. They're trying to police the market. They're trying
Right. I'm
to
not. I did
boost certain
word that.
things.
I did word that openly. I will admit. But what I want to
Oh,
get at,
sorry.
what I want to get at is the difference between like negative liberty and positive liberty. Like negative liberty is that the state says that the state basically doesn't get involved in, let's say, freedom of religion. Whereas
Yeah,
like a positive liberty would say that we need to create like the material conditions where individuals can freely exercise their religion, for instance, like de
yeah,
facto, practically. And that would like though religion would be a bad example of that. It would be more like healthcare, that individuals get sick. That's something that's largely beyond their control, and that if you do get sick, you're pretty much fucked within a pure free market system, especially if it's a serious illness, you don't have insurance, etc., etc. Someone in a position like you're in right now, kind of.
yeah. Basically, yeah. I
And that
am fucked. I mean,
so
I do. Unfortunately, I do gain a lot of assistance from these government programs, but at the same time, I also acknowledge that I would be better off if I actually had a job to pay off and contribute to society, and I would be happier if I had my own place. I mean, I think government there should be a bare minimum of assistance. I don't think people should put all of their money into retirement or government mandated retirement. I think that should stop. I think people should have the option to put into retirement if they want to. As for healthcare, I think if the government has a budget and people pay taxes towards it, people should have the option to have free healthcare as long as other people willingly pay for it. Like if people want to give money to additional like healthcare organizations or whatnot,
well,
and have that healthcare be free.
if private
What's up?
charity was able to like solve this problem, wouldn't it have done so at some point throughout history?
Probably, but the problem, unfortunately, private charity also has a lot of government involvement. I think because the issue with private charity is that people get greedy and they want to profit, and then you have this sort of mishmash of people who want to make money off charity versus and they're pocketing off the funds versus people actually getting the things they want. I think that I think private charities are better than government funded charities. I think like especially like is Red Cross a government organization? I don't think it is, but
No.
I know that the government offered millions of help to Katrina, and they didn't actually get it till it was too late. And private charities mostly helped out with recovering Katrina in New Orleans or something like that. There was a good video. I should show it to you later. But basically, private charities do more to help the individuals than government-funded charities.
Well, we're not talking about government-funded charities, though, specifically, right? We'd be talking about like
Well,
universal
the
healthcare,
government, the government, government programs, whatever
like
it
they have
is.
in other first world countries.
Well, I mean, you have to keep in mind what other world countries have is utter bottom of the barrel dog shit. I mean, the reason it take like in Europe or Canada or whatever, it takes months to get an appointment. Like in Venezuela, it takes 3 months for someone to get
Well,
an appointment
Venezuela is a
for a
developing
bad hit.
country.
You know what I mean, though. Like even in Canada or the UK, it takes months for someone to get an appointment, months, weeks, whatever it is. When something really urgent happens, they're not able to get the help they need, and they might possibly die from it. In America, we don't have that issue. We get an appointment.
Well, in America, though, for large swaths of the country, the waiting time is forever.
Well, no, well, it's much worse in the
Which is to
UK
say that if
than
you don't have the money to pay for it,
ah.
or you're afraid to
Well,
go to the hospital because you know it's going to be a massive bill, and maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's something very serious.
I see. Well, I would say to that is that if the government has the funds, it should cover the funds for the private sector. I don't think the government should be policing the private sector more than it has to. Obviously, the government should get involved in certain things, like when it needs to be, like sensible regulation is something that I believe in. But like, I think government has taken things too far to the point where countries like Taiwan are outpacing us, and it's a legitimate problem for the states because Taiwan is controls all our semiconductors and all our computer stuff, despite being this small country, despite being under constant threat from the CCP. And I think that we need to get our shit together, basically.
All right, I'll move us
Yeah,
off the
and
politics stuff a little bit. Well, it's still
yeah,
somewhat
sorry
political,
about
but
that.
no, I'm the one who wanted to go this route because I wanted to
Yeah,
explore your views a little bit and push back a little bit.
no
Um,
worries, you're fine.
are you okay with gaming sites criticizing games through a political or religious lens, such as a Marxist, feminist, Christian, or other lens?
It depends on the site, really. I mean, they could say whatever they want, but I have the right to shit all over them as well.
What do you think of the framing of? Actually, hang on, I'm sorry. Do you think that there's any value in analyzing works through a political lens?
No, I think that I think it's mainly worthless. I think it's people just stroking their own ego, and I think that yeah, there could have been some interesting talking points from that, but because obviously some games have political themes, but they're not saying like they're mainly talking more about the environment and how corporate, how extreme crony capitalism could be bad for society and communism is bad for society. General themes we already know. It's not like they're talking about Orange Man bad sort of shit, and Donald Trump riding a horse and then getting caught in a barn on some hay or whatever. It's like there's obviously a difference between on the head political themes and subtle political themes. I believe one should be able to explore subtle. There is worth in discussing subtle political themes, but I don't think just bitching about Donald Trump is in any way valuable.
Is the Orange Man bad though?
Depends on your opinion. Personally, I am more of a DeSantis guy. I would vote for Trump if he won the primary, but it's like whatever. I think it's like if you don't like him, that's your opinion. You're fine. You're entitled to your opinion. It doesn't I don't think less of you one way or the other because like I'm fine with people who disagree with me as long as they don't go towards an extreme. Like if they're not going towards the extreme, it's fine. Whatever. Everyone's different. But if someone's obviously calling for genocide of Trump supporters or genocide for Clinton supporters, that's another story entirely.
Well, Mark, what do you think of the whole refusing to leave office after losing thing?
I think he's a sore loser. I'll be honest. I think he's a very sore loser. I think he should have known that the election would be rigged, and I think he should have prepared himself. And the fact that he didn't prepare himself and thinks he lost the election being rigged is weakness. He was the president of the United States, the highest power of office, and he didn't expect any cheating. Bullshit.
Oh my gosh, Mark, why do you do this to me, man? I didn't I didn't even really want to go this route. I didn't know you were an election truther. Um,
I mean,
but I gotta be responsible
let me
now.
explain.
I
So,
gotta be responsible
I think
now.
it's important to question everything. You should question the integrity of the election because if you don't, then there's possible exploiters. I think that you should question the election. If there's anything you're going to exploit, they will exploit it, and I think those exploits should be patched. With Trump, with Hillary, with Biden, if the election is rigged, then you shouldn't ask. Oh, you shouldn't say, "Oh, the election's completely safe." You should say, "What's wrong with it? How could we fix it? Is there any insecurities we should know about?"
Mark, was the election rigged?
Maybe. I saw a little jump, in
You
certain
have
areas of
the
the election. I saw a little bit of a jump. In my opinion, it could be rigged. that's just my opinion. I can't say it factually because I don't have the data, but in my personal opinion, I think it was rigged.
All right, Mark. So you say that people have the right to question things, and I agree. People do have the right to question things. That's why we had international observers. That's why we also had a large number of court cases, which Trump lost.
Yeah,
It would
and
seem like the questions were asked and the questions were
but
answered.
here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Well, just I'll just end this really quickly. I think that it's important because there were like for example, the Arizona audit. Apparently, they didn't have the information to say whether or not it actually was rigged. They just said, "Sorry." They just said we don't have the data and ended the case. I think they should have held on to that data, and that the fact that they didn't have the data shows me that they're trying to cover the tracks. I think it's important that that everyone's able to vote securely, and if voter ID is needed, and I think voter ID should be used for a more secure election, then we should have voter ID. If mail-in ballots are usually being used to rig the election, we should get rid of mail-in ballots. Voter ID is something we need 100%.
Oh,
That's my
you can
stance.
you can hold your like voter ID things, but if you're going to very publicly question whether or not the election's real, don't you think that you should be like able to back that up and like provide me with like 10 million sources and be like, okay, here's where this specific thing was wrong, and that's the court in this
I
case
said
said
I
that,
believe
and
it
then
was real. I said, listen, I said I believe it was rigged. I don't really know for a fact it was rigged. I said I believe it was. It could have. I've seen the charts of it spiking up in Arizona, well, one of the purple states. I see it, Trump winning, then Biden suddenly jumping due to the sudden mail-in votes. I have my suspicions. I've seen the charts, and unfortunately, I just think the election. I believe the election to be rigged because everyone's questioning. Everyone's trying to ban voter ID. Everyone's trying to ban, secure methods of securing the election. They're trying to ban task force managers. And I think the fact that DeSantis won Florida in a landslide means that we need people to make sure the vote is safe and secure. Otherwise, we won't know if the election is safe and secure. Donald Trump failed to secure the election because Donald Trump's an idiot. I think,
why do you think his own cabinet members resigned over this, and his own head of election security with the cybersecurity fuck this whole task force he created said it was perhaps the most secure election in history.
well, because Donald Trump's a fuck up. That's why. He tried to work with them, and he fucked up by doing so. He instead of questioning everything like he's supposed to, he tried to instead of draining the swamp like he promised, he tried to work with the swamp. I think that Trump should have, well, even during COVID, I think he should have secured the election routes, make sure mail-in voting was secure, make sure there's a voter ID submission with the mail-in ballots, so no one can fake 2, 3, 4 votes. No one tries to fake the election bullshit, and make sure there's some sort of verification to the votes.
All right. Well, I don't
I
want to get.
think the vote needs to. I
Go ahead.
think the vote should be secured. I know that maybe Trump lost. I think Trump may as well have lost because there wasn't enough people voting for him because they were so sure he was going to win. But at the same time, Trump is a sore loser, and I think Trump should take the loss in that situation. And if he's running for president again, he needs to have those safeguards. Otherwise, he's going to lose again. And I think having those safeguards is better than not having those safeguards because those safeguards secure the election rather than prevent people from voting.
Well, we can discuss this topic another time, but let's get back to the
Yeah, let's move
interview.
on. Let's move on. I think it's
Okay.
important to have safeguards. That's
Some
all I'm
people
going to say on it.
some people say that GamerGate was the first battle of the culture war. Do you have any thoughts on that framing?
I don't think it was. I think the first battle of the culture war was when game journalists started censoring people for disagreeing with Anita Sarkeesian. I think the culture war started when people were getting censored and blacklisted and all this other shit just because they supported the status quo at the time because they wanted to have a little sexy character in the game or because they had a different opinion.
What do
I
you?
think
Good.
no, I think that the culture war really started in 2012 when people were getting censored
Censored
and
over
people were
what?
starting to realize when people were starting to get kicked off everywhere other than 4chan for voicing opinion against against the mob. And it's like the we call them the Twitter mob now, but the whole social justice keyboard warrior mob. The extremely volatile hot pocket moderator people, and just people who refuse to have Nita discuss their talking points with their opposition. I think the culture war started when Anita refused to talk to other people. Gamergate was just the birthing of the culture war. I think it may have been. I think Gamergate is what caused the culture war to expand to a point we've never seen before. But I don't think it was the initial beginning.
What do you think of the framing of Gamergate or the reaction to it as being a moral panic?
I think it could have been. I mean, like a moral panic. You mean by people um, being upset over shifting markets, right? Over people not over what's it called? What do you mean? I'm sorry, I'm exhausted. What do you mean by moral panic?
Well, I was going to leave that for interpretation for you.
All right, so my all right, so I'll try this. I think that the response to GameGate was moral panic, but GamerGate itself was quite calm. I think a lot of people at GamerGate just wanted to talk with the other people and sort of discuss the what we could do to make things better or make things right because there was obviously a lot of censorship, a lot of like discussion against a lot of reframing of the discussion. I think a lot of people were mistaking them like actual concerns for ethics and journalism for as an excuse to harass women. I don't think I think there are groups that were harassing women, but I don't think they're related to GamerGate. I think they just used GamerGate as a sort of excuse to harass people. I think the larger GamerGate sphere was more focused on the ethics, and the small, minute minority was focused on women. And I don't think that a lot of GamerGate people are part of the misogynistic Chud movement here. The whole Chud, oh, we hate women. Women are bad. 3DVD bad or movement or whatever. I think it's like
Yeah, we'll be getting.
people.
Good.
No, you go. You go ahead.
We'll be getting to the misogyny stuff later on.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what do you think of the framing of Gamergate as a battle between those who believe in Enlightenment liberal values and those who don't?
I don't agree with that. I think Gamergate was focused on ethics. I think it was focused on exposing corruption, you know, giving gamers and developers, publishers a voice, and hoping everyone would just do whatever they want. Sort of giving everyone the information, sending the emails, having people actually represent us, speaking with the opposition, that sort of thing. I think Gamergate was basically a movement, a consumer revolt against the corruption and immoral practices that the industry was taking part in.
Did you interact with any anti-Gamergate people?
On Twitter, yeah, we probably just blocked each other. They got angry because Twitter is not really a productive place to talk about things. I've talked with a few of them, few in my time. I think that outside of Twitter, maybe a handful. I think we were willing to say, okay, this is my view, this is your point of view. You know, this is what we believe. I don't agree with you, but I respect your point of view. That sort of thing.
Well, Twitter not being a productive place for conversation. That's an interesting point,
It's
especially
not.
given
It's
that.
not because
Well, hang
I
on.
used to
Hang
speak. I
on,
used to
Mark.
speak
Hang
with.
on, Mark.
Oh, sorry.
obviously, when a lot of people think of Gamergate, they think of hashtag Gamergate. They think of Gamergate as a thing that took place very heavily, not exclusively, but very heavily on Twitter, a platform that you say is bad for discourse.
It is. It's mainly focused on getting the worst reaction out of people, rather than and trying to have them believe in certain political views, rather than having a meaningful discussion about the issues at hand. I think that Twitter was a mistake. It's all trash. But really, though, I think that, for example, I used to talk with a guy who used to work at a company called Xseed. I'm not going to say who, but I used to have him on Facebook. Before I deleted my Facebook account, but we would talk about Gamergate a little bit. He would have his opinion. He was anti Gamergate, but he was very reasonable about it, and he says he understands where people are coming from, but certain things work differently. And I don't remember his whole argument, but I remember him being very reasonable, very polite, and understanding of the situation, but that we were wrong in the sense that yes, gaming, journalism, and the industry should work together. I don't agree that to be the case, but he's entitled to his opinion, and we were very polite about the whole thing. It was a productive conversation, and yeah, I think that it was like people should, people are different. They have their own opinions. Like for example, I don't care for all these stuff. I allow it on my board, but I don't really care for it. I think it should be. I think it's like kind of yeah. I'm indifferent towards it, but like
How do we get back on level?
that's just my opinion. I'm not I'm just using that as an example. I just like in terms of anti Gamergate versus Gamergate stuff, I think a healthier way out would be to discuss it outside of Twitter, outside of Reddit, outside of any upvotes or downvotes or whatever. I think even image boards would be more productive than discussing it on fucking Twitter and Reddit and whatnot. Because at least with image boards, you get an honest point of view from an anonymous user. You don't get, you know, a bunch of retards upvoting your comment just because they disagree with it. I would argue that Reddit is a huge hot cesspool of people, like-minded people. I don't think that Reddit is a legitimate social media platform. It's a hive mind
Speaking of
because of the upvote downvotes. Oh,
speaking
sorry
of
about that.
anti-Gamergate people, you're in my Discord now. There's a lot of anti-Gamergate people in there. A lot of them
That's
joined because
fine.
they're
I don't
interested
care.
in the
I
project.
don't care about that. I
Oh
don't
no, I
care
meant
about that.
more as in you could discuss things with them if you want to and hear another perspective.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, I think that people should make whatever they want. It's not my business to someone trans or whatever. I think it's a little, a little weird, but that's just my opinion. I'm not saying ban genocide, trans people, whatever. It's like just do whatever you want, just don't get in my way. If that makes sense.
People are asking where they can find the text interviews. To clarify, the text interviews are going to be in the book itself, and I might go over them on stream too, but I have not scheduled that yet. I'm still scheduling tons of people. I'm doing almost 50 people for this project, operating from a wide variety of perspectives and a wide variety of different parts of Gamergate. I'm even interviewing third-party trolls as well.
Yeah,
Did you ever change anyone's mind on Gamergate?
I'm not sure. I'm not really entirely sure. I think well, you have to keep in mind, like I said before, I don't think I've ever changed anyone's mind on Game Beat. I think we had a general consensus of where we stood, but I don't think I really changed anyone's mind in the sense that well, actually maybe there was one guy I changed someone's mind on. I think he thought Gamergate was a harassment campaign, and I told him my point of view is that Gamergate was about individual freedom, and then he said and about being anti-political correctness and that sort of stuff. And I think then he started wanted to look up things a little more and became a little more friendly towards me.
Are you still friends with him or anyone else on the other side today?
I'm not going to say who he is, but yeah, I am.
I will take this question from the chat. It's not bad. From Inky Blitz. How might Gamergate have had an impact on how the wider entertainment audiences view things and the industry moving forward?
Well, I think well, it's interesting because like I view the comic book industry as the video game industry without Gamergate. So I think that if Gamergate didn't happen, it would be unprofitable. I think a lot of people go out of business. I think there'd be a very monopolized, very centralized industry, where only two people control the market. And I think that if Gamergate didn't happen, the indie industry, as we know it today, wouldn't exist. There'd just be a few games that are highlighted by people like Silver Screen Media and whatnot, and like Humble Bundle. Not saying Humble Bundle or Silver Humble Bundle is involved in these things. I'm just using them as an example. But in my opinion, I think it's good that Gamergate happened because it provides an alternative viewpoint to what those in the media is playing.
How could the Gamergate conversation or the conversation about Gamergate have been more productive?
I don't think there's any way to make it more productive because you have to keep in mind there are a lot of bad actors trying to rephrase the conversation to something about harassment when the conversation never had to do anything about Zoe Quinn or Brianna Wu or Anita Sarkeesian. Those were people who inserted themselves into the conversation. Gamergate itself is just about the corruption and people colluding with others and not having a voice in the industry.
Well, I mean, it's probably very difficult to say that Zoe Quinn inserted herself into the conversation.
Not Zoe Quinn, but Brianna Wu and Anita definitely did.
Aren't they also able to like talk about things that are happening in the world and express their own freedom of speech to criticize Gamergate?
Of course. But at the same time, it's like they don't let other people talk, so you have like two camps. Unfortunately, they divided people to two camps. They divided the whole AGG and GG people, and now you have like the left versus the right, and we're all at each other's throats. And it would have been more productive for Brianna Wu and Anita to talk with the other side rather than dismissing them as barbaric animals who just hate women.
What do you think of people who made money off Gamergate?
I think they're very lucky. I think good for them. I know Brianna Wu made a lot of money off Gamergate. Um, I think they saw an opportunity, took advantage of it. It's not ethical, and there are people on the Gamergate side of Candace Owens who did the same thing.
Well,
It's not ethical, but
Candace Owens wasn't involved with Gamergate. She had a separate beef with Zoe Quinn.
well, regardless, my apologies then to Candace Owens. Well, there was this one person in celeb that made money off Gamergate. I forget her name, but if she didn't play the system right, then good on her. She played the system and gamed the system and won in terms of her finances, in terms of her personal goals. Good for them, but it's not ethical or moral. It's just it is what it is.
Did you make any money off Gamergate?
Fuck no. I lost a lot of money on Gamergate.
Did you try to sell merchandise or anything like that ever?
I thought about it. I even proposed it once for a merch store for the original HChat, and everyone got pissed off, so he dropped it. I think later on, Jim Storr stole the idea, but it wasn't the way that I wanted to implement it, where there was a community element to it. Either way, it just wasn't going to work. So whatever.
Yeah. To be, I know some people in the chat are very skeptical of people making money off this stuff, and I understand that there were a lot of scammers, a lot of
Yeah,
people who ended up with the
So do I,
money.
100%.
But I do want to, personally, my view is that I'm fine with people making money off of this stuff, but it depends on the context. It like if you're doing
100%.
work related to it, and people donate money to that, or you want to sell merchandise for your YouTube channel or your website, like I think that's probably fine.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
agree. So
though,
as long as you're
obviously,
not scamming people,
yeah, as long as you're
as
not,
long as no one's being scammed or misled, that's one thing entirely. That's something else entirely.
yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
if someone's transparent, I think if someone's being transparent and they're saying, "Hey, this is what we want to do," you're welcome to support it. If not, it's fine. Then people should be given the option to support it or not.
And to be clear, I mean, like, I made money off GamerGate, right? I sold my first book, and I'm probably going to sell copies of this book too. So,
Yeah.
what do you think of Not Your Shield?
I think it was very important. I think it was really like, because you got to keep in mind during 2011, 2012, EA was using gay people as a shield to protect them from criticism. I think it was important for Not Your Shield to exist because Not Your Shield, even though it doxed a lot of people and made them possibly vulnerable, I think that was
Well, hang on. To
important.
clarify for the book, when you say doxed a lot of people, what you mean is a lot of people revealed their faces and personal information on their own.
Yes, 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 they do. So I think it was important that they came out because they're very brave to come out against it because it basically defunct their argument that Gamergate was only white men and that people who were minorities and were women and were gay or whatever, they supported the idea that gaming journalism needed to stop being so snobby, needed to get off its ass, and it needed to correct the mistakes it made, and that they weren't a shield to be used to deflect the criticism of Gamergate.
Why do you think some websites like R Gaming, 4chan, NeoGAF, and others banned discussion of Gamergate?
Because I think they saw Gamergate as enemies of the. They saw Gamergate as a threat. That's why they saw it as a threat to the establishment, and those sites are very pro-establishment, very pro censorship, pro Google, whatever you want to call it. And even 4chan, I hear a lot about 4chan. 4chan is not a free speech platform. It's like it used to be like 10, 20 years ago, but even like 11 years ago, but not anymore. It hasn't been for like 10, 11 years. It hasn't been a free speech platform. They allow polls, sure, but they have been, as soon as they banned Gamergate, any free speech 4chan could claim went out the window. So the other guys, Reddit, whatnot, they probably have some sort of interest in the status quo and sort of making things more left leaning or whatnot, working with Google, companies like Google and Apple, because Google and Apple control the mobile market. So I think the reason they banned the Gamergate stuff is because they want to be on Google and Apple's good side, because Google and Apple lean towards the left and they have left wing policies.
Why do you think some people claimed that Gamer? Actually, let's talk about that. Do you
Oh,
do you really
go
think that
ahead.
they shut down the Gamergate discussion because of them having left-wing views?
Yeah, I do. I think Gamergate was seen as a threat to the establishment, and it was shut down because of it.
Like, why would NeoGAF or R Gaming or 4chan care about a threat to the quote-unquote establishment? What does that even mean?
What do you? I'll leave that to your personal interpretation. I believe it. It's that because they thought a little differently, they saw them as quote unquote trolls who thought a little differently and decided to ban quote unquote the trolls for having a different opinion, for going against the grain, and for being a little bit outcasty, for having a different opinion, whatever.
Why do you think some people claimed that Gamergate was about harassment or hating women?
Because two reasons: one, they're easily fooled, and two, they wanted to deflect the conversation from ethics in the industry to harassment.
What do you think of the burgers and fries stuff, Mark?
It's very interesting. I think Iran was a victim of sexual harassment by Zoe Quinn. I think that Zoe Quinn's a terrible person. And I think she did terrible things, and that she shouldn't be celebrated. I think she did something terrible to her ex boyfriend, and that maybe her ex boyfriend didn't have any options because Zoe Quinn comes from a rich family, but he did the best he could in that situation. Unfortunately, burgers and fries. I think that they're trying to make it into this whole sexism narrative that people harassing Zoe Quinn. I think that's not in that may have been true for some. That may have had some truth to do it. The harassment was bullshit, but I'm not saying that she didn't get harassed. I'm just saying that it's bullshit that she got harassed. But at the same time, it's like I think that there's an important distinction between those who were just calling for justice, wanted Zoe Quinn to be held accountable for her actions, and those who are actually harassing women. I mean,
What does that have to do with ethics in games journalism, though?
nothing. Burgers and fries is different from GamerGate. How Burgers and Fries relates to GamerGate is all Nathan Grayson and the game developers who Zoe Quinn banged. Because what happened was, as you know, Zoe Quinn and Elon worked in the games industry, and because of that, because of Nathan Grayson being a gaming journalist pros, they felt they had to defend their own, end quote. So by defending their own, I think they made a massive mistake. Instead of just playing things cool and being level-headed, I think they were too emotional when it came to this situation. I think yes, there was probably some harassment, you know, thrown around here and there. I think that's separate from Gamergate though, because I think Gamergate was more about the gaming journal Pro List than it was Burgers and Fries. But I don't think Burgers and Fries. I don't think the gaming journalists would have been exposed without Burgers and Fries. So it's kind of this complicated situation where something bad led to something good, that sort of thing. It's just internet justice being made or whatever the fuck. Honestly, the guy should have gone to the cops like everyone else, but it is what it is.
Yeah, do you think that this should have like I'm just here's my question. Aaron Joni or Yoni or however you say his name and Zoe Quinn had a bad breakup. Some bad stuff happened. Maybe Zoe was bad to him. Maybe he was bad to her. I don't fucking know. I never read the Zoe post. I don't really have an interest in it. I don't really view it as GamerGate related, especially. But
It's kind of
but
it's
hang on,
it.
Mark. God,
Well,
my
oh sorry.
God, dude.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Why
I'll
should
just say
people?
this.
Hey, oh my God, dude, stop. Like no offense,
Okay.
sorry, but okay. I just want. I'm gonna finish this question if it kills me. Now I'm getting a little bit sidetracked now. So what? Why should the internet care about these two people and their personal escapades that are kind of shitty and not doesn't involve those other people?
Because there's obviously some corruption afoot, and the corruption, not Zoe Quinn and Elon should be investigated. The corruption surrounding them should.
What do you think of the studies about Gamergate and harassment, such as the Women Action Media and Brandwatch studies?
Probably bullshit. I mean, you have to keep in mind these studies are usually made by people with a heavy bias who are more interested in the political leanings rather than accurate information. So I don't trust them to make good academic reports.
Okay, so it's bad data then.
Basically, yeah.
Do you even know what studies I'm talking about?
I do not, but I have a feeling. I have a feeling that what's it called? I have a feeling it's probably going to be biased shit. I just don't trust academia in general, man.
Oh my God, dude. Okay, so the studies actually show that Gamergate wasn't, for the most part, engaged in harassment. But I guess like you didn't know what I was referring to, so you just assumed.
Yeah, I did. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
I'll admit it. I don't trust academia.
Yeah. Well, the
I
Brandwatch,
apologize. I was wrong, but I still don't trust academia.
for context, the Women Action Media study found that only 0.66% of Gamergate supporters using Randy Harper's block list. So using Randy Harper's fuck it, using Randy Harper's block list to determine who is a supporter of Gamergate. They studied Gamergate over a period of time, several weeks, I believe, and found that only 0.66% of the accounts on the blacklist had engaged in harassment.
Well, there you go. Guess I was wrong.
Or maybe it's bad data. You don't trust academia, I guess.
I don't trust academia. I'll be honest. I don't trust it.
The other study too. Let me pull it up. I got my giant document here. It's 1.26, I think. Yes, only 1.26% of the tweets from the Brandwatch study were found to contain negative sentiment towards Brianna Wu, Anita Sarkeesian, Leigh Alexander, or Zoe Quinn.
Yeah.
Though we don't know their full methodology because they never released it publicly.
Well, there you go. But I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I don't trust academia mainly because of the heavy socialist left wing bullshit, but bias or whatever. But that sounds about right.
What do you think of the GamerGate anti-harassment patrol?
The GamerGate anti-harassment patrol. I hope they did a good job. There wasn't much to do, I'm sure, but more power to them.
How important to you was it that bad actors were condemned?
Pretty damn important. Very important actually.
So if somebody was you were the board owner of V, so you have a very unique role in all of this. What kind of things
Yeah,
were off limits?
the usual. You like going against their houses, doxing them, harassing them, like violence, acts of violence, calling for them to be beheaded, that sort of shit. Calls of violence. Actual address information, personal information. That's like we have a general rule list. I'll post it right now privately if you want. Well, you want me to post it or? Hello, you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading the next. No, it's
Yeah. So
okay.
we have a.
I
So we. Oh, sorry. So we have a specific rule: no spamming, flooding, raiding, or botting. Do not call for, advocate, post, or link to docs. V is not your personal army. That's all there is to it.
all right. Do you think most GamerGate people did a good job condemning harassment?
I think so.
If you saw someone quote unquote on your side doing something you thought was bad, how would you handle that situation?
I would call him out.
You don't have to answer or talk about it, but did you experience any harassment during Gamergate from either side or from third-party trolls?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I did. Like it. Well, there was one part Baphomet. I don't remember who it was, either Baphomet, a cow, or whatever. Someone threatened to post a bomb threat in my name. So I had to call the police and tell them to, hey, this guy's posting a bomb threat, and help get the police involved to make sure that the school doesn't panic, so the psychopath doesn't actually get me in trouble.
Why do you think the media largely didn't cover harassment against Gamergate supporters?
Because they thought they were right wing.
Do you have any thoughts on Zack Attack?
Not really, no.
What do you think of the term sea lining?
What the hell is sea lining?
It's from that webcomic about the sea lion who asked.
Oh, the sea lining, the sea lion. Eh, not your shield, I guess.
I haven't been asking people this question, but some people suggested it's a good one. Can you define what
Huh.
you think harassment is?
Well, that's actually a good question. I think harassment is specifically is targeting people, telling them, "Hey, we're gonna do something illegal to you. Like, we're gonna we're gonna send shit to your house. We're gonna send you drugs. We're gonna kill you. We're gonna harm you. That sort of shit." things that are obviously illegal or just being overly aggressive, that sort of thing is harassment to me. I don't think criticism is harassment. I think it's fair to criticize someone in a public space, and maybe you could tell someone they're being overly annoying, and if they don't back off, that's harassment. But if they don't know that they're being overly annoying, then that's not harassment. That's just them making a bad call. You can't tell people that they're you can't tell if people aren't being overly annoying unless you tell them. Some people don't have the awareness for that sort of thing. So you got to tell them specifically or block them and say, "Hey, you're annoying me. Shut up." And if they don't shut up, they try to harass you, like like fucking. They say, "Oh, you dumb bitch, I'm gonna fucking kill you," or whatever the fuck. Yeah. And then it's like that to me is harassment.
What do you think about how the media covered GamerGate?
It was terrible, completely biased. No GamerGate people to speak of. Completely lost faith in the media after that. I don't. I. That's why I became partially a conspiracy theorist because I don't believe anything the media says anymore. I think it's all bullshit.
If you were a journalist, how would you have covered or investigated GamerGate?
I would have both sides speaking on the issues at hand. I would try to cover things as neutrally as humanly possible. I would present both sides of the argument and have people come to their own conclusions.
Both sides, how do you decide what that looks like?
If it's very simple. If someone's calling Gamergate harassment campaign, they're on one side. If someone's arguing that ethics in the gaming industry needs to be fixed, like needs to be revamped, like if there's no ethics in if someone's saying there's no ethics in the video game industry, that's another side,
Well, that's
and
not
that
those
there
aren't
needs
mutually exclusive viewpoints though.
they're not. But the sad thing is that those are the two main arguments on the gamer side. Either someone's saying they're harassing women, or ethics in gaming journalism is a problem.
Well, a lot of the people who say that they're harassing women also say that ethics in games journalism is a problem.
Yeah, and the problem is that the AGG people think that the harassment outplays the actual ethic problem, and I think what they think is that they think that the ethics thing is an excuse to harass women. I don't think it is. I think saying that the ethics thing as an excuse is like saying in using their logic, it's like saying like Black Lives Matter is more about terrorizing New York than actual police corruption. It's the same sort of logic. Yeah, BLM gets it passed as left wing, yet Gamergate doesn't because it questions the left.
How do you determine who you should talk to though for the pro Gamergate side? It's a leaderless movement by nature.
If someone's being polite, everyone has their own opinion,
No, as a
sure. But if
journalist
someone's
though, I'm
being,
talking.
oh, it's basically what you do is you because it's a leaderless movement, you see who the top people are, and you try to bring them into the conversation if they're civil, if they're polite. You have an individual interview first, and then once you understand where their point of view is, and you think they would be civil, then you and not cause issues for the opposition, then you have a debate.
How do you determine who the top people are?
Who gets the most views on YouTube? Who controls the narrative? Who is talking about who is the most influential among the gamer games? I mean, it's like I don't like using YouTube exclusively. I think it's important to get all sorts of viewpoints. It's why GamingGate as a leaderless movement is good, is because not there was no leader, there is no top people, and there's no one to really there's no one big leader. You could just talk with anyone in the movement, see if they're civil enough, and bring them on and have them talk with Anita to eat their ideas.
Well, you were obviously, to some extent, a major player within GamerGate, insofar as anyone was. You ran the V board. Did anyone
I
reach out
did.
to you from the media
Yes, actually, I was in a True Island documentary. But let me explain
about
though,
GamerGate?
because
I mean, sorry to clarify.
no, sorry, I was making a little joke. So, yeah, I was on the Ralph report at one point, and we did a fun little stream there. In terms of massive media coverage, no, because Frederick got a lot of the credit for the things the team did. Because Frederick was the main admin, and everyone just attributed everything to Frederick, which is fine, whatever. Frederick didn't really care much about Gamergate, but everyone saw him as the Gamergate guy, which actually kind of annoyed him, believe it or not, because Frederick didn't really care for Gamergate one way or the other. He was this in a bit of a libertarian at the shrug phase, and and he just saw Gamergate as an opportunity to promote his website, which fair enough, that's all cool. But in terms of action, but here's the thing: Frederick was not a gamer. Frederick was a programmer. He loves programming. He loves computers, but he was not a gamer. The GamerGate stuff came from my team, the team I worked with. I'm not saying it's only me. It was like three or four different people. I was one of them. We worked on promoting it, and we worked with top people to promote it, and that's how sort of 8chan came to be on GamerGate, because because GamerGate was looking for a new image board. We reached out to the GamerGate people looking for a new website. We said, hey, here's 8chan. We allow GamerGate. And that's kind of what happened. And then it just kind of took off from there.
Did you reach out to any journalists or media outlets who wrote articles about Gamergate to correct misinformation?
I tried, but it was mainly ghosted.
Did any. Hang on.
I mean, I probably reached out to them on Twitter. It was a long ass time ago, like 9 years ago. So I don't remember the exact details, but I do remember saying, hey, that's bullshit or something along those lines. I mean, I was pretty radical back in my day, believe it or not. Nowadays, I'm more level-headed, but
I know we've
yeah.
touched. I know we've touched
I mean,
upon.
back.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Let me just finish. Back in my day, I was actually pretty radical. I saw people. I was like a young 22, 24-year-old kid, and I didn't really have any grasp on the reality around me. I thought everyone was either black and white, and I know that's not true now, because I know that things aren't black and white unless you make them black and white.
Did the media's coverage
So,
of Gamergate increase or decrease your trust in the media?
what do you think?
We've already talked about that at length.
Yes, we
So
have at
you
length.
you you used to see things you saw things as black and white during Gamergate.
Yeah, like I said, I was a very impressionable young kid. I was 24 years old. I was still I was still figuring out my life choice, what I wanted to do for a living. And it's like I was very depressed at the time too, and I was a bit of an attention whore. And with GamerGate, I did see an opportunity, and I wanted to take advantage of it. I saw 8chan, I saw that there was no V board, and I saw people who wanted to work with me to help foster a new type of 4chan competitor, and I saw that there's potential in 8chan. So I put it on Twitter. I put it on 4chan. I put it on the GamerGate thread that was on 4chan at the time, which is another image board that shut down. That was hosting GamerGate content at the time. And I told them, hey, we're allowing GamerGate content on our website. No one else is going to let you on. We'd be happy to have you. And then they came on, and then it exploded in popularity. Then Jim bought it, and then, yeah, I've told you the story in the beginning. So there you go.
If a journalist who got Gamergate wrong, in your view, is reading this now, what do you want them to reconsider?
If a journalist got something wrong with Gamergate, I would have them reconsider their point of view. I would have it reconsider thinking that everyone in Gamergate is an enemy. I would consider listening to the Gamergaters, or the Gamergates as we call ourselves. And I would
The gamer what?
consider we call, if you believe, I'm not sure if you believe me, but the true GGs, the old GGs, we call ourselves the GamerGays.
I've never heard this before in my entire life.
Well, you should have been in the thread, my dude.
I'm not an 8chan guy, I guess. So, I
Well,
mean,
there you
I
go.
posted
There you
on
go.
HQ a little
So we
bit.
so we call ourselves GamerGays. We like Sharkooey or whatever, and yeah, basically the GamerGays. What's it called? Where was I going with this? Fucking what was the question again?
What do you want a journalist who got GamerGate wrong to reconsider?
I want him to reconsider that everything's about him. Like, or everything's about harassment. Everything is about individuals. I think he needs to look at things through an outside lens and try to be as unbiased as possible and try to look through things through our point of view rather than just mingling with his elite friends, his Access Journalist friends, and just making assumptions of the kind of people who we are.
You might reject the premise of this, but I'll try to rephrase it in a way that you might accept. If the media wanted to do a retrospective and learn from their coverage of Gamergate so that they could do better in the future, what could they learn about how they covered it?
They could learn a lot. Well, considering that they're biased as shit. They were really terrible. Their coverage of Gamergate was fucking dog shit. And they don't even apologize for it either. It was just like complete utter dog shit. And
Yeah,
if
I
they want to
actually
learn something, no. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, please finish your point. I'm about to derail this
No,
whole
it was
thing.
just it was just complete dog shit how they covered it because they only covered the harassment angle. They didn't try to interview anyone on the Gamergate side. They didn't try to talk with any one of us. They just said, "Oh, gamers are bad. Gamers hate people." They just try to rage click and get money from rage baiting, and it's disgusting, really. So I think they should learn that people want the truth. They don't want rage bait, and that the rage baiting only gives them short term income rather than long term trust.
One of the anti-Gamergate people I interviewed very recently believed that Gamergate was covered basically pretty fairly, that they got the important stuff right at least. From their
You're
view,
joking.
from no, they're Hannah Zamora. If you want to watch that interview, it's a very good discussion. It's about 7 hours long. It's a very good interview, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
she talks about how she believes that Gamergate people were objectively wrong to focus, so that the media got Gamergate right because they shouldn't have included quote unquote our side of the story because Gamergate was objectively wrong in the same sense that like people who are promoting flat earth conspiracy theories are objectively
Well,
wrong and that the hang
unfortunately,
on
she's
Mark,
more.
god
Oh,
damn,
sorry.
holy fuck, um that that Gamergate is objectively wrong and that the truth isn't in the middle and that if you're going to be responsible in your coverage of something, you don't have a scientist and a flat earth person discussing issues. And that she views Gamergate as through the same lens because a lot of the stuff that happened in the beginning of Gamergate, in her view, was harassment against Zoe Quinn, and that was a more important story. Indeed, that was the only real story that should have been focused on at the time, and that if you want to bring up conversations about ethics in games journalism, you should probably wait until the harassment has stopped, even if that's an indeterminate amount of time. We went really deep on this particular topic, so I hope I'm not
Well, I
strawmanning
think.
her. I feel like I'm presenting her arguments pretty well.
Well, I would argue that first of all, Gamergate was objectively right. Objectively, the gaming journalist is a real thing. So any argument about it being objectively wrong goes out the fucking window when you consider the leaks. So I would say just say flat out she's wrong. The leaks are real. She's got no ground to stand on. Cope with it. I'm not saying this to disrespect her. I'm just saying that's what it is. Because if she can't cope with the fact that she's wrong, then she's not going to be a reasonable
Well,
person.
it's
She
it's
has.
it's not even a position of being like wrong per se. It's like she holds like a completely different like philosophy, and that philosophy is that we shouldn't have had that conversation then. We should have waited, which I think is like a wrong viewpoint, but it's like not objectively wrong.
It's pretty objectively wrong until you consider the leaks.
Game Journal Pros, you mean?
Yeah, the gaming journalist is what I've been calling it. My bad.
What do you think of the GamerGate Wikipedia article?
Bullshit. It's just bullshit. It's clearly written by someone with an agenda. No, it's completely biased bullshit. It discredits Wikipedia as a website. The fact that it remains in its current state is fucking disgusting.
Would you like to see quote unquote the narrative on GamerGate change?
Yeah, who wouldn't? Because the narrative on GamerGate is so absolutely wrong and not related to GamerGate at all, to the point where it's like I questioned. Sorry, I question the ethics of even regular journalism because of GamerGate. I question whether we could trust the New York Times or the Washington Post because of GamerGate.
Has your conscious experience as a human been made worse to any degree because of the negative narrative about GamerGate?
About the same. My conscious of what? Like my personal well being?
Yeah, your personal well-being.
Eh, I was fucked either way, so eh, give or take, sure, why not?
All right, we're approaching the end, but we're not quite there yet. We're in like the last quarter or last fifth.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Some light items. Well, this is the hardest question of all, of course. But what's your favorite video game?
I don't have a favorite. I have multiple favorites, but no de facto favorite.
Well, do you want to list off a couple of them or a few of them?
Yeah, sure, might as well. Devil May Cry 3, Sonic Adventure 2, um, Third Strike, I guess, um, Team Fortress 2. Um, there's a lot of games like Ninja Gaiden for the NES and the Ninja Gaiden Black as well. Smash Brothers Project M. I know that's a mod, but still. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, Metal Gear Solid 3. Yeah, there's a lot of games that come to mind. Hi-Fi Rush, fucking Metal Gear Rising, Saints Row 2. There's a lot of games I could list off, but I don't think I have any individual one game that I love the best. Because games are so different if you think about it. Games don't are like I wouldn't compare Saints Row 2 to Devil May Cry 3. They're just two completely different. To say I like one over the other, it's like they're on a completely different spectrum. I love them both, but for different reasons.
Did you attend a GamerGate meetup?
I did once, yes.
What was that like?
It was all right.
Do you want to talk about the friendships you made during GamerGate?
Yeah, I made quite a bit actually. I made quite a bit. I don't want to talk about them individually, but I did make quite a bit of them. Yes, it was a very fun ride.
Do you have any thoughts on Vivian James or GamerGate related art projects?
My waifu, Vivian, my daughter Fu.
Waifu or daughter fu?
Depends. I'll leave that for personal interpretation.
Depends on which artwork you're looking at.
Yeah.
What was your favorite moment during GamerGate?
Oh, there's a lot to list. I don't think I have one. I'm sorry.
you want to list off a couple of them at least then?
The birthing of 8chan Birth of 8V was a great thing for me. So I guess that's probably the one thing that really because when 8chan was a thing that was incredible. I fucking love that. I love the I love the community that we fostered. I love what the community we built together. And 8chan was just a great project in general. I have a lot of good memories with 8chan. And the team I worked with and all that. Good shit. Good shit.
If you could have changed one thing about Gamergate, what would it be?
What did I change about GamerGate? Well, I think we need to start focusing on where we could make meaningful change, not just in gaming journalism on YouTube. I think we should have focused more on the YouTube side and have more people become YouTubers. Not like quartering, but more like just more Mark. What's his name from back in the old GamerGate days? There was this guy, not Mark Kern, but Mark. I forget his name, but basically, there's this one guy named Mark, not me, not Mark Kern, but a different Mark, who was very good at what he did. And I think we need more Gamergate people on the YouTube side because YouTube became extremely popular. And I think the more rational people we have on the Gamergate side that are on YouTube, the more better we could represent ourselves in the industry.
What would you personally have done differently during Gamergate?
I would try that. I would personally back then. I would have tried to understand people more because I was fucking wild back in the day. I wasn't harassing anyone or anything crazy like that, but I was really on the fucking the fucking Gamergate train or whatever you want to call it. I think that I should have calmed. Obviously, I was a fucking teenager, so I don't think I could have calmed down. But I think I should have been at least more rational in my approach, or at least try to think more rationally, try to be more forgiving for some things. But I was happy that I was able to make HC the thing, and that people were able to speak their mind, and that's more important to me than anything. That people were able to have the individual freedom to criticize what they want and have a natural competitor to 4chan or whatever.
Let's say it's 10 years from now, and an online movement is looking to Gamergate for guidance for their movement. What advice do you have for them?
Basically, if someone wants to make Gamer 2,
Well, any sort of online movement, and they want to look to Gamergate for guidance.
yeah. I was actually called the Godfather of Game at one point, so I would say focus on having influential people. Don't be a leaderless movement, sure, but have people within your movement try to best represent themselves. Like, try to have I would say try to do the emails, do the target where you need to target, build your platforms. It it basically push back against the status quo. Do not take no for an answer. Just keep pushing, and hopefully everything will try your best, and hopefully everything will turn out okay.
What have you personally learned from Gamergate?
Twitter is shit. Twitter was a mistake. Reddit was a mistake. Everything would everything is a mistake. The net was a mistake. Oh god.
Do you see parallels between Gamergate and the way society currently discusses issues?
In a sense. I know Trump broke a lot of people for some reason, so I think a lot of people panic over nothing these days. They see Orange Man and they go crazy. Yeah, I think he's a sore loser, but it's like I'd rather have him than the establishment, honestly.
I mean, you say sore. Do you think it's an issue when in a liberal democracy, one of the president of the United States and future candidate for president who might potentially win again in 2024, do you think it's an issue that they themselves do not respect the peaceful transfer of power and the rule of law?
Well, I think we should have voter ID. I think, well, yeah, I agree with you. I think he was a sore loser. And I think that he should have had security protocols in place to prevent the thing he was claiming that would happen. And then you become surprised when it happens. It's like,
Or well, when
you
when
lost. You
see, there's
fucked
the
up.
thing. You're like, well, I don't know if it was rigged or not, but it did happen. Like
Yeah, if
you're
it
not
happened,
you're
it
not
happened. I
very
mean,
you're not
like
very you're
there's
not
no
very
safeguards.
responsible in how
Everyone
you
was
talk
fucking
about
voting
this.
through the mail. He fucked up. And
Well,
now
there
he's
was
claiming
we've
he
had
fucked
we've had
up.
vote by mail. We've had vote by mail in many states for several decades, over 100 years, I believe, in some cases.
Yeah, but the post office ain't worth shit. Better just vote in person. More accurate that
And
way.
there was also this, global pandemic going on at the time.
Fuck the global pandemic. Are you an American or are you a wussy? Are you a wuss? Vote like a real American.
Yeah, I
Uncle
think
Sam wants
it's
you.
I I think that a lot of the measures that were implemented due to COVID, some of them were ineffective, and some of them went way longer than they should have. And I think that's like a serious
We shouldn't.
problem
We
that should
probably
be
shouldn't talk about this
criticized.
on YouTube, but
But
yeah,
oh well,
I
fuck,
think
you're
there's a
right.
lot
Well,
of
I don't
issues.
care. It's for the book, so I don't really care. But like
All
at the
right,
same
sure.
time, like it is a major public health issue, and like the government is going to take like reasonable steps, or they should take reasonable steps to try and provide accurate information to the public, which they don't always do, but they tried to do to some extent, and to implement like basic measures. And like we can disagree as a society on what those should be, of course.
Yes, but there was a clear government overreach when it came to COVID.
I don't disagree.
I mean,
But it was like
it's
a
like you
real
could,
thing, and it's like, oh well, you're just a pussy if you think the government should like implement a very basic reform like expanding access to mail-in voting during an election during a pandemic.
I guess either way, Trump fucked up. So if he wanted to secure the election, he failed.
What do you think of the decentralized and leaderless nature of GamerGate?
I think it worked out fine for GamerGate. I think that a leader, a GamerGate leader, would have hurt things more than to have. I think it would have hurt things rather than help things. Because if you look, either way you look at it, GamerGate was going to get slandered no matter what. But what it is, in my opinion, is that it's better that GamerGate was leaderless and was more focused on the anonymous user board rather than having a leader, because the leader would have fucked things up.
Was GamerGate successful? You've already talked about this, but was GamerGate
I think it
successful in
was,
your eyes?
yes. It was, yes.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by successful?
What did he mean by this? So what I mean by this is that I think it accomplished all it set out to do. I think that GamerGate did the best it could, and that even with the ESG shit, the billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies that are trying to prevent it, GamerGate did everything it could to educate people, to sort of give people their own understanding of things, and whether or not it went far enough is up to the individual. I think it went perfectly fine. I think it was mostly a success. But I am sure people disagree. That's fine. I think it was interesting to say the least. But I do think it was a success. Yes.
If you could do it all over again, Mark, would you?
Yes.
What do you think of this interview project?
Interesting. Very interesting. I love doing these interviews when I can. I'm not the best at them, but I try to have fun with it. Uh, some of these people like in the chat, like they clearly fucking hate me, but it's like whatever. Have fun with it.
How do you think I've done with this?
I think you've done all right. I think I've been half asleep this whole like towards the end of the interview, so I apologize if I couldn't give you the best answer. But
No, you're fine. I got a little bit upset with you over interrupting me while I was asking
it's a
questions
bad
for the
habit. I'm
interview.
sorry.
Yeah, but it's different people have different communication styles, so maybe I was a little too harsh, but I do feel
You're
like
fine.
it's
You're
part of it is
fine. It
important
does.
to control the conversation a little bit as the interviewer. I feel like it's important. Oh, off topic. If I post a link to my Kick and YouTube in the V thread, am I considered a shill? And is that bad? I feel it's fine because I feel like I'm doing a project that's related to GamerGate, very much so. In fact, you're not gonna answer that, are you, Mark? Mark, hello? Did we lose him? What the heck? Let me send him a DM. Maybe he doesn't realize he's not coming in. Fuck it, I'm gonna shill. He didn't say I couldn't. But seriously, I'm doing this Mark interview. It's only one of probably close to 50 interviews in total. I've got like 48 people confirmed so far, and I've done 21 other interviews. Oh, I'm sorry, I've done 20 other interviews, 21 including this one, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job so far. I'm trying to get like the as close to the full picture as I can. Is he not coming back? Oh, he's okay. Here he is. All right. Hey,
Sorry about that. So my internet just went down for some reason.
oh, you're fine. It happens.
Yeah, yeah. So what's it called? So yeah, as I was saying before, or what was it? I mean, you're fine, man. You're good. I just, you're good. I apologize for interrupting you. So you're perfectly fine, man.
All right.
E. So what else? Any other questions or?
Two left. Two left.
All right, let's go. Let's do
Actually,
them.
I do want to ask you more because I am a self-centered. I believe the word is conceited individual, and I
Oh,
am thirsty for feedback always.
yeah, for sure. But
Obviously,
let's stick.
I hold a pro GamerGate bias. I was involved with GamerGate. I'm very upfront about that.
Yeah,
H- How do you think I'm doing approaching my bias with this?
I think you're being as neutral as you can. Obviously, you're like me in some areas, but you're doing the best you can. I think and that's all I could ask for.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Some people reading this might hold a negative view of GamerGate, including two of the people in the chat right now, Bash Fluff and Miss Sonata. Do you have anything you want to say to these people?
Um, yeah, you're entitled to believe whatever you want. I'm entitled to believe whatever you want. We Gucci, we cool. If it's like everyone has their own opinion. Respect me, I'll respect you, and we're good.
Anything else you want to talk about regarding Gamergate?
I'm more interested in knowing what happened with my internet, but yeah, I guess what's it called? It's Gamergate. I don't know. Frederick Wax is actually interested in Gamergate, the Frederick Ben and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I worked with a team of people. I think I went over that in my introduction. But yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for doing this, Mark. I know you don't do a whole lot of interviews with people, so I
I don't.
appreciate
I'm
it.
terrible with them. I'm terrible with them. And I'm gonna apologize if I fluffed it up or made it or fucked it up on my end. But I hope this was enjoyable for you as well.
It was. I think you have a really important perspective. In fact, that's why I wanted to interview you, and why I had some people put out feelers to reach out to you, because you did run V during Gamergate, and you also
Yeah.
well, I don't really care about the 8chan stuff as much, like the you creating the
Eh,
spin-off
fine.
site of like, yeah, you creating your own 8chan board, like that's fine. Like that's not the
Yeah.
focus of this interview. That's an interesting part of perhaps internet history that just got documented. But I do think you have an interesting perspective on here, especially since most of the people I've interviewed haven't been from the chans. So I think it's important to hear that viewpoint. And obviously, you don't represent everybody in the chans. People in the chans disagree with you. You disagree with them. That's totally
Oh,
cool.
absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of
Yeah,
the image boards community is that no one agrees with everyone. I think that's important. Like, obviously, you have people who agree with others and whatever. I think it's important that we have people that disagree, like even the AGGs and the DGs or whatever the fuck.
yeah,
I think it's important that we just try to be all respect and understand each other and be peaceful.
yeah. And in theory, I'm interviewing Thydrin tomorrow, the owner of Burgers and Fries, the IRC
Oh
channel.
god, that oh
But
god, that should be fun.
but with the family stuff going on, I'm not sure if that's going to happen now. Oh, it's going to happen either way, but it's just a matter of does it happen tomorrow or not. Um,
You might have to reschedule. I understand.
yeah. But ideally, we want to do that. I also have to schedule for next week too. But um, I've got Ash Scow scheduled, and someone's going to be reaching out to me soon about next week. Just doesn't work very well for me. I got a lot of stuff going on in real life, but I could probably do
Yeah.
like one or two of them. Anyway, I got a bunch of people watching. Some of you are regulars. Some of you are discovering this for the
How
first
many
time.
people, by the way?
Right now, we've got 8 on YouTube, 2 on Kick.
Oh,
So
very nice,
I
very
just want to
nice.
say, thank you for watching. If this is your first time watching this, I've done 20 other interviews with people, and I'm doing way more. I've got 48 people confirmed or semi-confirmed, and it's a very ambitious project. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna put it onto a book format, except my plan is to have it all be basically the full interviews with only like minor editing to make it better for the book. And like maybe like a fact check because I've been fact checking these. I know a lot about GamerGate stuff, so like I feel like I've been pretty responsible, and I'm not gonna make claims unless I have receipts on it. So I feel like I've been pretty responsible in like in how I make statements and also in how I address other people's statements that are made. But yeah, check it out. Subscribe to the channel if you want. Like the video, leave a comment. You know the stuff, the usual stuff. And I'm on Kick and YouTube, so and Twitch too technically, but I don't really do anything with Twitch because Twitch. Cool. Well, hey, thanks again, Mark. We can talk off air for a second, but I do got to get going. I'm gonna find out what's going on
Sure.
with this
Thank
real
you for
life
having me.
situation. We're gonna go ahead and raid Sitch and Adam. If you guys remember, Sitch was a pro GamerGate person back in the day. He did the video on GamerGate Explained, and it's the one where he talks about the cafeteria analogy. Though Troy Levitt also used that same analogy as well. I'm not sure who made it first. I think Sitch might have, but I'm not 100% on that. I've also interviewed Troy Levitt as well. He's already been a part of this project, and I appreciate that. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good night. Um, in theory, Thydrin interview tomorrow, but not. I don't know. We'll see what's going on with this real life stuff. So hey, take care. Thanks for watching, and thank you, Mark. We're gonna go ahead and raid Sitch now.